Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. The chairman of the board, Mr. David Reed, is here today. Hello, Mr. David Reed.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I am outstanding. We're going to make today a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Why? Because, well, I won't be here tomorrow, so today's going to be our Fireball Hot Take Friday, which I am at least a little excited about. So there's a massive headline that I saw yesterday that, again, how much does it matter to me and how much does it matter to you? That's very debatable, but it was a big headline nonetheless. The Los Angeles Lakers sold for $10 billion yesterday. $10 billion. Which is a wild, considering that the Celtics sold, I believe, less than a year ago for $6 billion. And I'm not totally sure why Jeannie Buss is all in on selling the Lakers, but that's a story for Los Angeles radio, not for Nashville radio. But I've been thinking a lot about it. You know, we use these Forbes valuations to figure out how much a team is worth, but that's really not the definition of what something is worth. The real definition is, what will somebody buy it for? I bought my first house years ago in Green Hills. And I remember when I bought the house and it was at the top of the market at the time. And I thought, I think I might be overpaying a little bit. Like, this is a very expensive house in Green Hills. Like, what am I doing? And according to all the websites, Zillow, Redfin, whatever it may be, I could sell it for roughly double right now. Now, I haven't sold it. Somebody else lives in it. But there was a time about a year and a half ago, somebody came up to me and said, hey, they reached out to the real estate agent. They said, hey, somebody reached out. They really want to buy that house. And I asked for an astronomical price. I love that house in Green Hills. I love the value of that house in Green Hills. If I ever renovate the current house I live in now, you know, one of those big renovations, if I ever do something like that, I'll go back and live in that house. I love that house. Long story short, I asked for an astronomical price, something that even I thought was ridiculous. And the people came back and they said, well, that's probably not worth that. I was expecting that. Now, if they had said, hey, we'll pay that kind of money, I'd have said, you got it, here are the keys. And when I hear $10 billion for the Lakers, I'm like, man, that would be really hard to turn down, which takes me to the Titans. If you were Amy Adams Strunk and you were Kenneth Adams and you were Barclay Cunningham Adams and you were Susan Lewis, and I don't even know who that is, by the way, but you were Susan Lewis, who owns part of the Titans. If you were part of that group, would you not have to at least have a discussion when the Lakers just sold for $10 billion? Again, $10 billion with a B. If you were the Adams and you were sitting there, would you not say, well, what does that mean for the value of my team? I looked it up today. In August of last year, the Titans were valued at $4.9 billion according to Forbes. But when it comes to the valuations of teams, Forbes is almost always wrong, and it's almost always way too conservative. They undervalue teams like crazy. They had the Lakers valued at $7 billion before the sale yesterday. So just plugging off how wrong Forbes was and how much they undervalued the Lakers into the Titans, that would put the current value of the Tennessee Titans at $7 billion. So I don't know. Again, the Commanders sold recently for $6 billion. And as of right now, it seems like the Titans would probably be worth $7 billion if they were on the market. But here's where this gets crazier. The NFL has the potential to opt out of their current TV contracts in 2029, with Monday Night Football being opt-outable in 2030. And so, the potential of what the NFL could bring in from a TV standpoint, and they will add an 18th game, and they will play more international games, and they'll have more broadcast windows, and there will be more potential partners. The same way Fox joined the mix in 1994 by blowing the NFL out of the water with a price they couldn't refuse. Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Apple, they could get in the mix in the next TV contract. Plus, the Titans will have a new stadium with which I believe they should just be able to print money. Because not only will this new stadium feature a tax bill that the Titans will be able to take the tax to improve the stadium, which, again, I'm not saying goes right in their pocket, but I'm saying not only will they be able to do that, but the kind of events that the Titans will be able to hold and attract because of that stadium. We talk about Super Bowls and Final Fours and things like that, and I'm sure they'll get their cut in something like that, but that's not the real moneymaker for the team. The real moneymaker is the constant concerts that they'll be able to have. It's Music City. They'll have this massive new state-of-the-art venue. No concert promoter or ticket seller will ever have to worry about, well, if it rains and it gets postponed and they're not going to have to worry about any of that. I mean, so between the fact that the Titans in 4 or 5 years from now will have a brand new money printing stadium, the NFL as a whole will have the ability to, and they will, opt out of their television contracts. And the Lakers just sold for $10 billion. I'm starting to wonder, where is the line for the Adams family? Again, if we use Forbes valuation, they said the Lakers were worth $7 billion. At the same time, they said the Titans were worth $4.9 billion. So let's use Forbes valuation and how off it was on the Lakers sale price, and let's put that towards the Titans. That puts the Titans at $7 billion. But again, there's no NFL team on the market right now, and so there's all these guys that would love to own an NFL team, and the NFL is king. So if the Titans, with their new money-making stadium and the NFL's new TV contract, if they were to hit the market today, I'd be shocked if they didn't fetch $8 billion. Again, the Commanders went for 6, and that's without a stadium in place that they're going to have to figure out. The Titans stadium, it's done. Like, they got the deal done. So I do wonder, where is the number that would put the Adams family over the top to sell the team? And that I couldn't tell you. But don't think the Lakers sale yesterday isn't going to have some sort of ripple effect, some sort of wave across the country as far as what it means for these franchises, especially in the NFL, where, let's not kid ourselves, the real estate is the best. The NBA teams, and they make plenty of money. Their new $77 billion TV contract is about to kick in next year. Even though nobody's watching these NBA finals, the NBA makes money hand over fist. Don't think they're not looking at this and saying, God, could you imagine if we were the NFL? And if our TV contracts were coming up, and if we could just add an 18th game to the inventory the way the NFL is just going to add an 18th game. And I'm not saying the Titans are going to sell. And I don't want anybody to think that that's what I'm saying. But if you own the Titans and you saw the Lakers go for $10 billion yesterday, how could you not at least have the conversation? You know, Jerry Jones has gone on record and said he thinks he can get whatever he wants for the Cowboys, but he'll never know the actual value of the Dallas Cowboys because he's never going to sell the team. Jerry is going to die as the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. He said it. So I keep wondering. Again, every time we see a team sell, it's for a massive amount of money, and it's always the kind of things where my dad will shake his head. It's the same with quarterback contracts. I remember when Trevor Lawrence signed for $55 million, and my dad was like, they pay these quarterbacks too much money. I do wonder what he thinks about $10 billion for the Lakers. But if everybody has their price, don't you think there's got to be a number where even Amy Adams Strunk, and I've seen the letter that she sent to the Metro government when it came time to negotiate this stadium. Amy Adams Strunk sent Metro government, Mayor Cooper, sent him a letter saying, I'm not selling this team. This team is my dad's team. This team is my family's team, and we are going to own it for years to come. And I believe it. I do. But when the Lakers go for $10 billion, don't you have to have the discussion about what your team might go for? And then where is the number where you're like, okay, fine, I'm going to do it? 10 billion, 12 billion. If somebody called today and offered you 15 billion for the Tennessee Titans, you'd say no? So I've been thinking about this all day. If the Lakers are 10 billion, what are the Titans? And with Amy, and again, like Amy's not poor, folks, even though we get mad about some of the spending sometimes, and we know that some of the more extravagant owners spend a fortune on their team. Amy is not poor. But is there even a number that she would look at and she would say, okay, I got to do it. I got to do it. Would there have been a number that Bud would have looked at it and said, I got to do it? I don't know. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program if you want to weigh in. Again, I just wonder if the Titans ended up being worth $10 billion, does that push Amy and the rest of the family over the top to say, okay, fine, we'll consider it? And here's the one thing that I will say that I don't totally understand about these buying and selling of sports teams. We'll get to that coming up next. It is a Fireball Hot Take Friday on a Thursday. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I have high expectations, and I'll never apologize for that. And these fans deserve a great team, and they deserve a championship brought to the city. And that's what we're going to work towards. And I'm prepared to make the hard decisions to hopefully get us there sooner.
There you go. That was Amy Adams Strunk. And that was a couple years ago, but she was saying, hey, I'll make the hard decisions. I'll do what it takes for our fans, and I love the Titans. And look, there is, you know me, I'm a big believer in being fair. There is something to be said for the fact that Amy Adams Strunk has said we're not selling the team. But with the Lakers selling for $10 billion yesterday, don't you think there has to be a discussion? And yet the Titans are adamant they're not selling the team. They're never going to sell the team, that it belongs in the Adams family for generations to come. It will stay with the Adams family, and that will continue in perpetuity. But here's, I guess, where I'm putting myself into this. I keep asking about the money. David Reed, is there a number? If you owned your team, loved your team, is there a number somebody could offer you that you would sell your team for?
Oh, when we start talking double digits with the little B after it, we're talking.
What's your favorite team, Reed? Favorite pros team?
The Chicago Cubs.
Okay, if you own the Cubs and somebody came and offered you $12 billion, would you do it?
Yes.
So I'm not sure I would. This is the one thing that I, just putting my own feet in the shoes. If I owned an NFL team, no matter how rich or how poor I was, and again, even though some of these people are richer than others, they're all rich. None of them are flying Southwest Airlines. If I owned an NFL team, I don't think I'd sell the team. Because while I don't ever expect to be a billionaire, while it'd be nice, the one thing I'd want to do if I had the endless amounts of cash is I'd want to buy a team. Like for me, it's the Atlanta Braves. You know, if Lindsay was the heiress to Tim Hortons and we got married and her net worth was north of $10 billion because, again, she's the heiress to Tim Hortons, or if she were the heiress to Rogers Communications, again, as you see, I'm picking the Canadian companies. But again, like a buddy of mine dated an heiress to, I'm not going to say who, but an heiress to a very famous frozen food company. I think that's the right way to say that. And I remember when that happened, and I thought, like, if I was him and I married her, the one thing I'd do is I'd say, honey, can we buy the Atlanta Braves? And because the Braves are owned by Liberty Media, which is a publicly traded company, you can buy the Atlanta Braves. They're not for sale, but you can buy the Atlanta Braves simply by making them an offer that they can't refuse based on their shareholders. So if I went to the Braves and I said, hey, I'd like to buy the Braves, and the valuation is $3 billion, and I said, all right, I'll pay $3 billion for the Braves. The Rays just sold for $1.7 billion yesterday too, by the way. But I'd say $3 billion. And they said, no, we're not for sale. Fine. $4 billion. No, we're not for sale. $5 billion. Whatever it takes to buy the Braves, I'm doing it. Well, then I'm never going to sell the team. Because again, the one thing I would do with all the money in the world is I would buy the Atlanta Braves or the Titans. But I think I'd buy the Braves. And Amy tells us that's what they're going to be like. She tells us this was her father's team, and this will be her children's team, and that this will stay within the Adams family for years to come. And I'm telling you right now, I don't doubt any of that. Like, I don't think they're going to sell the team. I had somebody tell me who was very connected when it came to the Titans around 2023-ish, like maybe right after Rand Carthon got in there. I think Vrabel was still the coach. And they told me they thought the Titans were prepping for a sale. And I said on air, hey, what if, is there any way the Titans can be prepping for a sale? And the Titans were pissed. They were like, that is irresponsible. You didn't even call us to ask about selling the team. And that is fair. Like, the Titans are right. I should have called. But after having had conversations surrounding the Titans and a potential sale, I am convinced, and maybe they're lying, I don't know. I'm convinced Amy's not thinking about selling the team. I will take her at her word. But to that exact point that David Reed just made, once we start talking $10 billion, does that start to change your mind? For me, the answer would be no, because I can't think of what I'd want to buy other than an NFL team. So the reason you're offering me $10 billion is because you want the one thing that I have that I would pay $10 billion for. If I had $10 billion, what would I'd want to buy a team. And maybe they're that way too. I don't know, man. This is where it gets fascinating. And the NFL is looking at bringing in private equity to buy parts of teams. And I'm just saying, if the Lakers are going for $10 billion, and I know the Lakers as a basketball property, the Lakers are the creme de la creme, them and the Knicks. And I know that you're not the Lakers, but this is the NFL as compared to the NBA. So I think there is something to that. At some point, is there a price you can't say no to? A lot of people want to weigh in. So we'll get to them. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025 here on the program. One texter said, Jared, we're talking about the $10 billion valuation of the Lakers today. It's not a $10 billion valuation. The Lakers sold for $10 billion. The valuation was $7 billion. But I just looked up the Predators' valuation, and they're valued at $1.3 billion. I don't know what that has to do with me or this. And as I said, the valuations, what Forbes puts these teams at, those are just an estimate. Again, $4.9 billion for the Titans? No, not when the NFL is about to come up in 2029 with a new TV contract, and not when the Titans are about to move into a new $2 billion stadium that is pretty much already paid for, and they're going to be able to print cash with. So again, I use kind of the mathematics here on this. If the Lakers were valued at 7 and they went for 10, and the Titans are valued at 4.9, by that arithmetic, the Titans really will sell for 7. And considering that the Commanders, with no stadium deal in place, sold for 6, I could buy it. I could see $7 billion being the going rate for the Titans. So I don't get caught up in what they're valued at. I think that those numbers are fugazi anyways. I could do that job. Just Jared Stillman, senior evaluator for Forbes Sports Properties. How much are the Cowboys worth? Well, $14 billion. Who's going to argue that? Something is only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. And if there are no NFL teams on the market and the Titans with that great stadium deal come on the market, I'm telling you, it's going to be more than $4.9 billion. But to answer your question, I have no idea what that means for the Predators and their valuation of $1.3 billion. And I know the Predators just sold to Bill Haslam, and that thing's still kind of in the process of being sold one way or another. But I would say that, when it comes to the actual money, these things do, for the most part, go up. And the Predators, I don't know what they'll sell for if they go get sold again. I don't know what the Titans will sell for. But don't you have to have the discussion? Like, I love my house. If you offered me $3 million cash today for my house, it's yours. Take it. We'll move. And I hate moving. Even though I do love my movers, I hate moving. But if somebody offered me $3 million today, take it. Your house. And I do wonder what that number is for the Titans, if there is a number there. But if I own the Titans, there wouldn't be a number there. You would not be able to buy it. If I own the Titans, I am telling you right now, You can come to me with 10 billion. You can come to me with 15 billion. You can come to me with 20 billion. The next owner of the Tennessee Titans is going to be Jackson Reese Stillman. That's going to be the next owner of the Titans. Because like Jerry Jones with the Cowboys, I'll die with that team. And maybe that's what Amy's going to do no matter what. I don't know. But at some point, you do have to talk about the money. 615-737-1025. Bunch of phones to get to on this. Apparently, a lot of people want to weigh in. Plus, the one thing I will say about this Genie Bus selling the team thing, there is one thought that I do have. One kind of what if. I want to get to that. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game.
Cam, how you doing, man? This
I'm good,
is
man.
Mike Begons with Tennessee Titans.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. You guys doing well there?
Yeah, we good.
Yeah, you good? Hey, listen,
sir.
you know, as we went through this whole process here, I can't tell you how impressed we've been with you. Not only the player, but the person that you are, you know, the leader that you are. And we couldn't think of anyone more deserving to be this #1 pick here and to represent this franchise. So we're going to turn
Sure.
this pick in here and make you the #1 pick. How's that sound?
Good.
Sound good? Listen,
Yes, sir,
congratulations. Enjoy the moment. You deserve it. Enjoy this moment with your whole family. Soak it in. I can't wait to see you guys here tomorrow, you and your entire family. And we'll get ready to work here, right?
Yes, sir. I'll see you tomorrow.
I want to turn you over to our owner, Miss Amy, okay?
All right.
Hi, Cam.
Hey, Miss Amy, how you doing?
Are you excited?
Yes, ma'am. I'm ready.
We're so happy for you. We're so proud of you. Welcome to
Appreciate
the
you.
Titans and welcome to Tennessee. Everybody's so excited.
There you go. That was the draft phone call on draft night between Cam Ward and Amy Adams Strunk. And again, the Lakers selling for $10 billion yesterday. It's just kind of got my head kind of spinning and, oh my God, what if in the Titans and this? And again, I don't think the Titans are for sale. You know, but I remember years ago when there were a lot of questions surrounding the future of the Titans. Bud Adams had died. Tommy Smith had been put in as the president. And Susie Adams Smith was the controlling owner. And then she got pushed out and Amy Adams Strunk became the controlling owner and Steve Underwood came back as president. And I'll never forget Underwood, you know, with that goatee of his covering his lips, would say, the team is not for sale. It's never for sale. The team has not been for sale. It's not going to be for sale. And people are like, well, but no. And obviously, you know, Underwood, man of his word, they haven't been sold in the 10 years since that happened. But I do wonder this. What if Cam Ward is that dude? Now, you know me. You know I don't think Cam is going to be that guy because I just don't think he's that good. And you also know that I don't think the Titans have an infrastructure in place for Cam to be that good. So I would be betting against this. But again, let's just play the what if game here. You're going to know if Cam is that dude, you're going to know most likely next season. You're going to know by year 2. By year 2, Tom Brady had won a Super Bowl. By year 2, Peyton Manning had taken the worst team in the NFL. They were 13-3 and the number 2 seed in the AFC. By year 2, Joe Burrow had Cincinnati, of all places, in the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson was league MVP. Mahomes was league MVP and on his way to his first AFC championship game appearance. He hasn't not been to the AFC title game since then. Big Ben won a Super Bowl in his second year. Russell Wilson won a Super Bowl in his second year. Very rarely is it Drew Brees, where the guy looked like a bust in San Diego, then he made the Pro Bowl, then he got hurt, then he ends up with Sean Payton, now he's an all-timer. That's rare. Even Brett Favre, who was drafted in the second round by Atlanta and then traded to Green Bay, even by his second year, he was a Pro Bowler. So let's say Cam is that dude. Let's say he's the next one. Just like Jaden Daniels passed the test this year. So we're looking at the NFL, and 3 years from now, it's Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Lamar, Daniels, and Cam. Which, again, I'm not expecting, but I would absolutely love. Well, how does that affect the price of the team? Because you'll know by 2026 if Cam is that dude or not. So you'll know, okay, league MVP in 2026 at quarterback at 24 years old. New stadium in 2027. NFL opts out of its TV contract in 2029. Then how much are the Titans worth? You cannot tell me that having a star quarterback who's going to be on your team for 10 to 15 to 20 years does not up the value of your franchise. that right now, if all the franchises were put on the market today, I'm not saying Kansas City would sell for more than Dallas, but I am saying Kansas City would sell for a lot more than Carolina. I think that does matter. So then I wonder, okay, well, if Cam is that dude, and could that be part of the reason why when discussing like, hey, do we want to go trade for Geno Smith? Do we want to go sign Sam Darnold? Instead of that, it's like, well, hold on. You know, if we get Cam Ward and Cam Ward's that dude, can you imagine how much this team's going to be worth? With the TV contract on the horizon, I think the Titans could fetch $11 billion. I think they would beat out the Lakers $10 billion. I do. Washington was 6, and that was before Jaden Daniels, and they don't have a stadium in place. So add in your stadium, that probably adds $2 billion to the price. So now you're at 8, plus a franchise quarterback, plus a new TV contract. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to weigh in. One texter says, Jared, it does not matter what broke people will do if offered $10 billion. It matters what rich people would do if offered $10 billion. People that don't need the money don't need the money. That's how I feel. Like Amy Adams Strunk is not missing any meals. She is not flying Spirit Airlines. She is not budgeting her family vacations out. She's got money. So when it comes to $10 billion, would the $10 billion make you happier than owning the team? And me personally, I believe that what would make me the happiest if I had this endless amount of money would be to own the team. That's what I would like. Let's say, again, that I married the heiress to some massive company. There's a stock I'm really hot on. I don't know if I can say the stock on the air or else that'll be like I'm trying to manipulate its price or whatever. But there's this AI stock. A buddy of mine who is a banker in New York, we played high school baseball together. About 2 years ago, he came to me and was like, buy this stock. And I said, okay. So I put basically my entire 401k in that stock, and it has exploded. Now, there have been some moments where it's gone down a little bit, and then it goes back up, and there's just some days where it's popping. And let's just say if this becomes the next NVIDIA, I'll make something like $4 million off of this stock. Now, it's not going to be the next NVIDIA, but if it is, that's what we're talking about here. The reason I bring that up is, what if I was one of the original investors in something that goes haywire? We see the things that are like, if you had invested $1,000 in Apple in 1983, you would be making blah, blah, blah. Well, if I had endless amounts of money, the thing that would make me happy is owning the team. So I wouldn't sell my team. And maybe that's how Amy is and how the Titans are. But I agree. This is not about, well, what would you do with him? Well, I'd buy a house and I'd get a plane. And Amy's already got those things. Chris says, Cam Ward is the last person on earth I'd bet on to fail. Everyone in the past that he was eventually has been humiliated. I don't disagree with that. But again, there's a lot of guys that are good in college. Let's be good in the NFL. And humiliated might be a stretch. Cam didn't get to the playoff. Cam didn't get to the ACC title game. I keep hearing this, Cam's a winner. And it's like, but he didn't win like Vince Young did. And we saw how Vince Young did in the pros. One texter goes, what if there's a number that pushes the rest of the family to want to sell, but not Amy? Is Amy then being too stubborn to let it go? Well, this is the other thing that with all these teams has to be discussed. And this is why, again, in this perfect world where Lindsay becomes the heiress to Tim Hortons one way or another, there is, I know I can buy the Atlanta Braves because the Atlanta Braves are a publicly traded company. They are owned by Liberty Media, who is a publicly traded company. And if the valuation of the Atlanta Braves is $3 billion and I go and say 5, you can't turn that down. That's how Elon Musk bought Twitter, which, by the way, let me say this. If I was going to spend $44 billion, it would be on something a lot better than Twitter. But again, that's what Elon Musk did, was he went to Twitter with a number that they could not refuse. And now he owns it. That would be me with the Atlanta Braves. Well, I don't know how that works with a team like the Titans, with a team like the Steelers, with a team like the Colts, for instance, where the singular owner is gone and has passed it down to his children. And so now it's split amongst them. I mean, Carly Ursay Gordon is the one who's in charge of the Indianapolis Colts. I have no idea what happens if somebody says, we want to buy the Colts for $10 billion, and the two other daughters say, sold, give me my $3.3 billion, and Carly Ursay Gordon says no. I don't know what happens. That said, I believe Amy owns over 51%. And if Amy owns over 51%, then she has the final say. One texter says, Amy Adams Strunk, Art Rooney, and some of these others will all be long dead before their families ever sell their respective teams. Kyle in Shelbyville says, I'd love for the Adams family to sell the team. I've already heard Amy is frustrated and out on the team until the new stadium gets here. It would be such a breath of fresh air. Well, again, I think that if they were going to sell the team, they'd want the new stadium done, and they'd want to know what they have at quarterback before they sell the team. One texter says the Titans are not smart enough to make decisions today for a sale price tomorrow. That may be true. Again, their chief football executive last year was Rand Carthon, who said the ball didn't bounce their way. And again, pretty much every decision he made was just a disaster. But again, when it comes to the money, I mean, let's keep our eye on it, because these are real. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Speaking of this Lakers deal, can I put my tinfoil hat on for a second? I have a potential, I say potential, but I have a potential conspiracy theory that I want to get to next, and that we will do here on Stillman and Company. Speaking of baseball, tune into ESPN 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Sounds take on Iowa. Pregame at 6:20, first pitch at 6:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and by Family Leisure.
It's the Lakers. It's $10 billion, Brian. There's some monster headlines here. What's your reaction to this story?
This is one of the biggest things that's happened in the NBA in terms of, shifts that we've seen in the last 15, 20 years. It was not a mystery that Mark Walter was probably going to be the next owner of the Lakers, because in his deal, he had the right of first refusal. It was just a matter of when the Buss family, if the Buss family ever decided to give up a majority position. And that has happened. And the timing is interesting. It's maybe not a total shock because the Celtics just reset the market. The Lakers are one of the biggest brands in the world. So the fact that it's $10 billion is not a surprise. Mark Walter is not a surprise. The Lakers are a very well-respected organization, but a small organization. And we saw what Mark Walter and his partners did when they took over a major brand that was operated like a family company when they bought the Dodgers. Now, it's not apples to apples, Scott, because in baseball, there is no salary cap, and the increased spending changed the entire world for the Dodgers. But the Lakers operate with a small infrastructure. They do not operate like a lot of other teams. And I would only suspect that the modernization of the Lakers is about to come.
There you go. That is Brian Windhorst talking about the Lakers sale. David Reed, may I have permission to put my tinfoil hat on here for a second?
Always. It looks good on you.
Tinfoil hat time. And you can tell me if I'm a conspiracy theorist or not.
Okay.
I believe that the Mavericks were in on this, and I believe that the Luka Doncic trade was a part of the eventual Laker $10 billion sale. Now, I'm not saying that the NBA went to the Mavericks and said, hey, for the good of the game, will you trade Luka Doncic to the Lakers so that they can sell the team for $10 billion? I don't think that's what happened. But I do think that the NBA, when they found out that maybe the Mavericks didn't want to pay Luka Doncic the supermax contract or whatever the hell it is in the NBA, they didn't want to pay Luka Doncic the supermax contract, that they said, hey, Jeannie is talking to Mark Walter about selling the Lakers, and we just signed our new TV deal. The Celtics just sold for $6 billion. The Lakers need a star with LeBron's retirement around the corner. Let's try to squeeze out as much juice from that orange as we can. And I don't think this is as direct as, say, rigging the lottery or Tim Donaghy rigging the Game 7 of the Western Conference Final. But I do think that that's like hey, let's talk about these things behind the scenes before we go out there and do them. And I absolutely think, now that I know what the sale price was, I absolutely think that this was a part of it. By the way, Mark Walter already owns a quarter of the team. He's not paying $10 billion. The sale for what the remaining portion of the team was valued at $10 billion. So that's why they say $10 billion. He's paying less money than $10 billion. But again, it's just, that's the number they want out there. And here's why. And here's why I believe the Mavericks would join in on this, to trade Luka off. Because the NBA, like Major League Baseball, has its eyes on expanding. The NFL is the only sport that, as of right now, it feels like zero interest in expansion. The other sports love it. The one thing they love about expansion is what's called the franchise fee. You want to know how the Vegas Golden Knights were able to build a team good enough to get to the Cup final their first year in existence? They paid a $500 million franchise fee. And they do it again. Rob Manfred has hinted at baseball that if they were to have an expansion team, that they would put the franchise fee somewhere around $2 billion. Well, that number's going to go up. That's what it costs in order to get a new team. Again, 2 years ago, they said $2 billion. If the Lakers just sold for $10 billion, what is the franchise fee for an expansion NBA team? $5 billion? $6 billion? Let's set it at $5 billion. Well, now we're going to add two teams to the league. We're not just going to add one. We need one team in the Eastern Conference, one team in the Western Conference. So let's add them in there at $5 billion apiece. That's $10 billion to be split up amongst the other 30 owners in the league. $10 billion. A one-time deal. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to get off your ass. You don't have to lift a finger. And that makes everybody richer. It makes the Grizzlies richer. It makes the Bucks richer. It makes the Knicks richer. It makes the Nets richer. It makes everybody. And I'll put it to you like this. You own the Milwaukee Bucks, for instance. You like Giannis. You don't know if Giannis Antetokounmpo will sign an extension with you, and you don't know if Giannis can win a title again in Milwaukee. But you can trade Giannis to the New York Knicks, and then the New York Knicks are going to sell. And the New York Knicks will sell for $12 billion, which again doesn't directly reflect your bottom line. But then you're going to have franchise fees, and this will go right into your pocket. Would you do it? And before you say no, before you just say, no, yeah, Giannis is my guy, my team, I'm not trading, think about this. Would you want the owner of the Atlanta Hawks to feel the same way in the same spot? Well, he's got a superstar, and he wants to keep him, and he doesn't want to sell him for the good of all of us. If you would want the Atlanta Hawks owner to sell his guy to make your bottom line better, wouldn't you then feel the onus to do that yourself for everybody else? It's like when it comes to labor negotiations, the players will say, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for the players who come after me. So you can tell me whatever you want to tell me. But Nico Harrison, the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, did not shop Luka Doncic around. He called one team, the Lakers. And I do not buy, and again, you know me, I am not Mr. NBA, but I do not buy that he thought it was a fair trade Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic. What happened? I think the NBA went to the new owners in Dallas and said, hey, we'd really like you to do this. It'll be good for everybody. And Dallas said, okay. Tinfoil hat off.
Don't take it off just yet, because I want to run this by you. So it wasn't worth Luka for Anthony Davis, but was it worth it for Luka, Anthony Davis, and the first pick in the NBA draft?
So I'm a little torn on whether or not the lottery was rigged.
This is what you need to round out this conspiracy. That's what makes it a conspiracy.
If we're being honest here, and I've told you guys I value honesty and being fair, and this may piss people off, and I'm not sure I'd go there on serious just because, I just don't know if I'd want to have to deal with somebody getting upset about this. I'll go 45% the lottery was rigged, 55% it was kosher. The hockey lottery, which the Predators got screwed, that's not rigged. I saw the balls. It would not surprise me if it came out today that the NBA draft lottery was rigged and that this was I would not shock me one iota. But I'm going to think you don't go to jail for pressuring the Dallas Mavericks to trade Luka Doncic to the Lakers. You go to jail for rigging the draft lottery.
If you get
caught. You go to jail for throwing games. That's where I'm like, I can't totally get there. But I absolutely think this had to do with the Luka Doncic trade. All right, more of your phones. Do you buy my tinfoil hat theory?
Oh, yeah. Well, this is one of the first things I thought yesterday when I saw it.
I don't think it's that crazy. Today, Jared Greenberg from NBA TV told me that he thought it was a little nuts. And I'm like, well.
Yeah. Who does he work for?
NBA TV.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Uh-huh.
Got it. 615-737-1025. I also have another thought when it comes to this that is specific to the NBA and really would not be the concern of Amy Adams Strunk or the Titans when it comes to franchise valuations. I could talk about this all day. We'll get into that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. And we are, it is a Fireball Hot Take Friday on a Thursday here on the program. So Logan said in the YouTube chat, talking about these sports teams, because again, if the Lakers are a $10 billion franchise, what are the Titans? And Logan said, value is only going up all the time. I would hold on as long as I could. And I think there's something to that, right? How many times have we had moments like we had yesterday where you see $10 billion for the Lakers and you're like, holy crap. Remember 11 years ago, $2 billion for the Clippers was a holy crap kind of moment. But yet at the same time, I do wonder, this isn't the only big franchise in the NBA to sell here recently. The Grusbeck family that has owned the Celtics for forever sold the team this year for $6 billion. Mark Cuban, who owned the Mavs forever, sold his stake recently and no longer runs the Mavs. And I wonder if Jeannie Buss is making a move that is essentially a bet against the future of the NBA. Again, we all look at these sports franchises like they're consistently appreciating. That's the same way we look at real estate. But go back to 2008. People could not sell homes because the markets were flooded with banks trying to sell homes that they had repossessed from people that couldn't pay their mortgages because the banks were lending to people that didn't have the credit to be able to pay. But again, you bought your house, I bought my house, and again, we think it's going to be an appreciating asset all the time. And with sports franchises, you would think that. But is it crazy to say that this could be the peak for the NBA? Instead of thinking about it like a home, which is, again, usually an appreciating asset, or thinking about it like a car, which is a depreciating asset, you buy a new car, you drive it off the lot, you've lost a third of the value. Let's think of it like a stock. Stocks go up, stocks go down. What if Jeannie Buss is trying to read the market and thinks $10 billion, this is the best this is ever going to be? And I don't think that would be crazy. Next year, the NBA's new $77 billion TV contract kicks in. And I saw Brian Windhorst said on a podcast, the Lakers make more money from their local TV contract than the Grizzlies make in an entire season. So let's think about this for a second. We know through our experiences with the Predators and the Grizzlies and the Braves that we know that the regional sports network model is dying. These TV channels that, again, my grandmother used to pay every month to Comcast because I guess it just was included that she was paying for the Florida Panthers, the Miami Heat, and the Florida Marlins. Never watched a game. Well, now we know that cable providers are saying, we don't need it. So if the Lakers have a great local TV contract and the NBA is about to open up this massive national TV contract, and the league is driven by stars, from Larry to Magic to Michael to Kobe to LeBron, and there doesn't seem to be an heir apparent for the post-LeBron Steph Curry era, and the TV ratings continue to decline, wouldn't this be a sign that, hey, if you were going to get out, now's the time to do it? Last year, I was having a hard time understanding this. And I think we talked about it on the program. And anytime we talk about the NBA and why they're making all this money, we always get the go woke, go broke, which just isn't true. The NBA signed for $77 billion for their TV contracts. But I kept saying last year when this was all going on and TNT was threatening to sue the NBA and ESPN signed the dotted line, and Comcast, which is NBC, and Amazon was standing there with buckets of cash saying, we're ready. Just tell us how much, NBA. And I said, how is this going to, how does this make any sense? Last year, the NBA Finals had two large markets, Boston and Dallas, with superstars, Jason Tatum and Luka Doncic. And the TV ratings still weren't very good. Now, the TV ratings last year, much better than the TV ratings this year with no stars and small market OKC and small market Indiana. But again, the TV ratings weren't good for Boston and Dallas. And I kept wondering then, how is the NBA making all this money? And then this year, Sunday Night Baseball, ESPN pulled out with Major League Baseball saying it's not worth $500 million to us anymore to air Sunday Night Baseball. It used to be worth more to ESPN to air Sunday Night Baseball. And now they're saying we're not going to air Sunday Night Baseball anymore. Go look at baseball's TV ratings. Baseball's TV ratings are better than the NBA's TV ratings. And when it comes to superstars, and baseball is not a superstar-driven sport. Baseball is a team-centric sport. Dodgers, Yankees, Cubs, Red Sox. That's what moves the needle. Whereas in the NBA, it's LeBron, Kobe, Shaq, Jordan. That's what moves the needle. Baseball has, I think right now, better superstars than basketball. Ohtani and Aaron Judge. Who's the best player in the NBA right now? SGA? Nobody's watching. Last year, the Yankees played the Dodgers. Ohtani played Judge. They averaged about $15 million, I believe, a game, which, again, is inflated by the markets and by the players and everything else. You're not going to get $15 million this year when Tariq Skubal and the Detroit Tigers make it to the World Series. But baseball's TV ratings are actually going up. Basketballs are going down. So if baseball is losing $500 million a year on Sunday Night Baseball, I kept wondering, how is the NBA going to be able to justify the money that they're getting from Comcast and from Amazon? And I'm not sure they'll be able to do it. And this is not the first time that this would have happened in sports. CBS, speaking of baseball, CBS in the 80s signed a $1 billion TV contract with Major League Baseball. They pulled out of that contract after 1993, and there was a strike in 1994. Now, ultimately, the baseball franchises are worth more now than they were then, but if there was ever going to be a time to get out, that's the time you would have gotten out. Once you signed the TV contract with CBS. And so I do wonder how this all balances out. I've told you guys with the Big Ten, CBS and NBC pay $350 million a year for the second and third Big Ten game every single week. And with that comes these crappy matchups like Nevada at Penn State. At some point, CBS and NBC, they're going to ask for a return on their investment. When Fox is showing Ohio State in the noon window every week, at some point, they're going to get fed up saying, nobody's watching Nevada versus Penn State. Do something about it. And that's why I believe the Big Ten is focused on the 4-4-2-2 model of the college football playoff. They want 4 automatic qualifiers. So while they have conference championship weekend, 1 and 2 make it, they can play 3 versus 6, give that to NBC, play 4 versus 5, give that to CBS, and justify the money that they're paying on the TV contracts. Which, again, takes me back to the NBA. I don't think they'll ever be able to top this TV contract. I don't think they'll ever be able to justify it. The TV ratings are not going in the right direction, and there is not a transcendent superstar to take over the sport. I wonder if Jeannie Buss is saying, this is the best it's ever going to be. Time to get out. I wonder if this is essentially a bet against the future of the NBA. 615-737-1025. Add that to the list. Corey Curtis, News 2. He usually joins us on a Friday, but it's a Fireball Hot Take Friday. On this program on a Thursday, we'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. And let me tell all the fine folks out there, this week's Nationals Best Deal is Body Rock. Plank, lunge, twist, and push your limits with Body Rock's dynamic muscle sculpting Pilates-inspired classes. Designed to rock your body to the core. Get half off a $50 gift card now at theGameNashville.com/deals to use at any of Body Rock's 4 Nashville locations while supplies last. Stillman and Company, let's give something away because why not? Be caller 5 at 615-737-1025 to score a 4-pack of tickets to the FIFA Club World Cup match at Geodis Park on Tuesday, June 24th. So I can't get over this Lakers $10 billion sale. I had somebody, I actually had a caller on Sirius call in today that said that they think Jeannie Buss got offered the $10 billion. You know, the Vito Corleone, make him an offer he can't refuse. And that she went into a room and she talked to her father in the heavens who said, make the deal. That I think is a little extreme for me, but it does open my eyes to how much everything can be worth here. And especially the Titans moving into a new stadium. The NFL can opt out of their TV contract in 2029. They're going to. And it makes me wonder what this means. Corey Curtis joins us now, News 2 here on the program. So, Corey, I know this is a total hypothetical, but you know Amy Adams Strunk a little bit. I believe Amy Adams Strunk when she says her plan is for her family to own this team in perpetuity. But given the Lakers sale price, is there a number you think that could knock her off the spot? And could it be possible given what these franchises are starting to go for?
I think that question is reasonable for every team in pro sports right now because the valuations are so staggering and they're selling even higher than they are. I think the last valuation of the Titans was like $4.9 billion. And, you know, how much did Bud pay for the team? $25,000?
I think so. But you also have to remember those valuations are never right. So people are saying like, well, the Cowboys are valued at $10 billion. And if the Lakers just went for $10 billion, throw that out the window. The Cowboys are worth way more than that. Yeah,
they're going for at least $20 billion. And so, I guess, you know, looking at that, and I would, you know, if I were to say, hey, if somebody came to her with $8 billion, I mean, that's a lot of horses. Okay. She loves the horses. That's a lot of horses. But at the same time, if somebody's willing to come to an $8 billion now, in 3 years, that number might be 12.
Yeah.
I mean, it's accelerating that quickly. So that may be the whole reason to step aside, is if you think that those valuations are going to continue to move in that direction.
Well, here's the thing that and you're a sports guy like me, and I really do wonder this because I don't know the Adams all that well. I like Amy. I take her at her word on a lot of things. When it comes to having $10 billion, to me, if I were to get $10 billion, I've been joking around, like if Lindsay were the heiress to Tim Hortons or to Rogers Communications, right? Like what I'd want to do is I'd want to buy the Braves. Like I'd want to buy a team. If you own the Chicago Bears, you, Corey Curtis, the Bears are your team.
There's no way I'm selling it.
That's my point. Like, I do think that the reason that these teams sell for higher than the valuations is because the people that own them don't want to sell them. Because the first thing you want to do with all that money is go buy a team. And then you want to be the man running the team. So I do wonder in your case, is there a number you'd ever consider? What would you want to buy if it wasn't a team? And do you think maybe that's the position that the Adams find themselves in, which is you cannot buy this team? Jerry Jones has said he'll never know how much the Cowboys are actually worth because he's going to die owning them. Do you think that could be the case around here?
Yeah, I do, because I think winning a Super Bowl is important to her for the legacy of her father. And, you know, you love your dad, and there's things you would do for him. And, you know, so I think that, you know, the fact that this team has never won the Super Bowl is probably something that's important to her, that she be the first to do it. But, you know, we all, like I said, everybody's got that point when they need to step aside. And then, but the other question is, are there other members of the family that want to run the team when she's done? You know, we've always talked about Kenneth being that guy, you know, that it's a family business. But, you know, I agree with you. I think it's important to her, but only she knows how important it is. Because like I've said, if 4.9 billion isn't enough, not that anybody's offered her that necessarily yet, but if that's not enough to get her off the team, why would 6 or 7? I mean, that makes no difference in her life whatsoever.
First of all, I will say this. I think if the Titans went to market today, they'd be worth at least $7 billion. I don't know where Forbes came. I saw the same, 4.9 billion. I think if the Commanders are 6 and change, that's without a stadium. The Titans have a stadium, not just, I mean, they have a money printing stadium that is coming here in the near future.
And they're going to run it.
Right. And like they're getting the tax from the entire area is going to go to them. So that is a money printing deal that they're going to have. Corey Curtis with us, News 2 here on the program. So another element that would make a sale very attractive, Corey, would be if Cam Ward becomes that guy. And if I were selling the Titans, I would take your segment on Robbie and Retro earlier this week and how much you just took your pants off for Cam Ward after mini camp. I mean, you're convinced this guy's the dude. You're convinced everything they're saying about him is true. So the floor is yours. What has you so sold?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you took your pants off for John Robinson after he got fired, so I don't quite understand that.
61% of your games.
There we go. There we go.
Division titles.
We can go around and around about this. We can go round and round about this.
Rand won 9 games in 2 years.
Yeah, and he got fired, and he should have. You don't see me jumping up and down saying Rand was the greatest. I mean, he should have been fired. But regardless, I told you. I mean, I believe in the person because they need that person, that culture changer, to come in. I mean, they absolutely need. They have a chasm of leadership right now with Kevin Byard, Derrick Henry, Ben Jones, and all those guys gone. I mean, they need someone to fill those spots, and it's helpful if it's the quarterback. And he was a culture changer every place that he went, and you can see it here by the way he attacks work every day, by the way he attacks what he wants to do every day, by the way he drives his teammates and expects more of them. I said, I asked Chiga Okonkwo, are you a part of these 5 a.m. meetings? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I just said to myself, I didn't say it to him. I said, well, you're going to, or you're going to be gone, because this is a train that you're either going to get on or you're going to be shown the door. That's the way it is. It was that way with Kyle Vanden Bosch. You either got on with him, with the way things were going to be around here, or you were pretty much done, because there was a new way of doing things. And I think Cam Ward, he's got a lot to prove. He's got to be able to play to back it up. But right now he is coming in and creating, an expectation of work and of success. And if he doesn't back it up, it's all meaningless. But I think he's earned a lot of believers with his work. There have been other quarterbacks who come in here who their work maybe didn't blow people away when they got here.
I heard your Kyle Vanden Bosch comments the other day. I have to push back on this a little bit, Corey. I mean, Pac-Man Jones was on that team. Vince Young was on that team. Albert Haynesworth stepped on somebody's head on that team. Like, easy for Kyle Vanden Bosch, led the guys.
He changed the team. Were you covering the team then?
For Pac-Man?
He changed the culture of the team. Okay? He got there, and people got on board with his relentless effort and the way this team was going to play. Pac-Man was Pac-Man, but ask Cortland Finnegan what he thought about Kyle Vanden Bosch. I'm just telling you, he changed the culture of the team. You could see it, you could feel it. It was palpable. It was there. I mean, you don't have to believe me, but I know what I saw. I know what I covered, and I know what I experienced. He was a culture changer for this team.
Corey Curtis, News 2 is our guest here on the program. Speaking of which, by the way, I do love that Chiga Okonkwo story. That is just fabulous. Speaking of which, when it comes to the Titans and minicamp is now in the rearview mirror, where are we with Callahan? Callahan is a good guy. I think you and I both would agree on that.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, when it comes to Callahan, like there isn't anything in the last 18 months or so that says good coach. And I don't do this thing where I just like, oh, well, he gets the benefit of the doubt. He must be a good coach. He's our coach. Where are we on Callahan right now?
Well, I mean, the last year with Will Levis is a fail, right? We all thought, or I thought, he would be able to coach Will Levis up. That was one of the reasons he was hired. And he was unable to coach Will Levis up last season. So, that does not go in his checkbox. But, when you talk about designing plays, there are plenty of plays on the table for this team to execute that weren't executed. But there were other things, with the penalties and with the turnovers and the negative plays, that a lot of that does fall on him. And he acknowledges that he let too much of the small stuff go through as he was just trying to implement his system. And so I think, he learned a lot. He has to learn a lot. It has to be better. I think a lot of coaches learn a lot in their first year. And, he didn't take over a playoff team like Mike Vrabel did. Mike Vrabel was a good coach, but he took over a team that won a playoff game. It's a wildly different circumstance that he took over. But, he has to show that he and his plan and his coaches can make this team better than it was a year ago. And I don't think it has to be wildly different in the win-loss department. They have to show they're better. They have to show that they're doing things better than they did a year ago, not making as many mistakes, first and foremost. But I mean, I think they asked me Monday who's on the hotter seat, Andrew Burnett or Callie. And, for me, it's Burnett because that's hockey. I mean, you have a bad first month and he could be gone. But I mean, if Callie has another bad year, I mean, I don't think there'll be a year 3. Then I think there's a lot of pressure there.
Corey Curtis, News 2, Fireball Hot Take Friday, even though it's a Thursday. What's your hot take?
I was totally unprepared because it's Thursday and not Friday. But, I will say this. Okay, I will say this. I'm having shades of 2016. I'm starting to believe that the Cubs can make a return to the World Series. Starting to believe.
Yeah, I think it's a little too early for that. I had the Yankee fans 2 weeks ago basically being like, oh, the Yankees are so good, and now they can't score a run.
Yeah. Well, the Cubs' offense has dried up a little bit, but I think right now they're on pace to have 6 guys hit over 20 homers.
You know what's crazy? I want your opinion on this. This is June, so we can shoot the breeze on this for a second.
Sure.
So one of my best friends from college, he was my roommate in college. I'm in his wedding in October, and he is the first base coach for the Yankees AAA affiliate. And I've been filling in like all over the place on Mad Dog Radio, which is big in New York, obviously because of Mad Dog. And I really was thinking, like, listening to the hosts, sit there and talk about Boone sucks and the Yankees need the base running's been terrible. And he's the base running coach at AAA. I have been thinking, would it be dishonest of me to be on there saying they should fire their base running coach and call up the base running coach from AAA? Would that be bad? Would that be trying to think of the right word, treacherous of me to do that?
No, I think the words you're looking at for are conflict of interest. There is a massive conflict of interest there. And yes, what you need to do in your circumstance is talk to somebody else at Mad Dog Radio and get them to make that case for you.
That's true. I need to sell Dog on it. The problem is if I do, he'll probably forget his name and probably won't even remember it 5 minutes after I say it to him. I mean, Dog said to me at the Super Bowl, he was like, Jared, you are a fantastic host, And I bet you if you went up to Dog right now and you said, hey, what do you think about Jared Stillman on the radio? He'd probably be like, who? I mean,
you guys from Cincinnati? Oh, he's great.
Yeah, exactly. Corey Curtis, News 2, as always on our program. Corey, great stuff. We'll talk soon.
Thanks.
Yep. Speaking of Brian Callahan, there's something I've heard, something that I think many people believe that I do not. We'll get to that coming up next. I'm going to Company 102.5. 106 again.
Brian, we've talked a lot about lessons from last season, how it's affected the offseason approach for the players. How has it affected you as a coach, the lessons you take from last year? How has it affected the staff? Or do you find you're going about this job differently or no?
Yeah, there's definitely some things I go about it differently. I still think I'm pretty true to who I am as far as my interactions with people and players and the staff. But there's a different urgency that goes on here for me, for how I deal with the staff in particular. I think a lot of the things I've learned, I tried to put into practice. It's one thing to like reflect and say, oh, I could have done this and this better. I've been pretty intentional about doing the things that I think we needed to change. I've sort of attacked those things, and they've been a part of my daily interactions and process. And a lot of it was kind of through this offseason program that we developed. And how do we best win football games, and how do I best put our team in position to do that? How do I coach that better, and how do I do a better job from a leadership perspective for our players and our staff? So there's a lot of things that go into that, but I think I've not strayed too far from who I am and how I interact, but I've also been really focused and intentional about what needed to be better.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan. So I was listening to Sirius XM NFL radio. I love Jim Miller and Pat Kerwin. Pat Kerwin's been doing this for a long time. Media. He was a coach. He was an executive. TD will be in here at 4:00. TD loves Pat Kerwin. So Pat Kerwin's he's been around the block. And they were talking about the future of the Titans, the future of Brian Callahan. And here's what they said.
My Callahan time with the young quarterback, I think it does.
Yeah. The last thing you want to do is put that kid in a bind next to you with a different guy.
The last thing you want to do is put that guy in with a different guy. And I think a lot of people believe that. I do. I think a lot of people believe when it comes to what they're doing, when it comes that, hey, just because they've drafted Cam Ward, now Brian Callahan has a little bit more of a leash. That the last thing the Titans are going to want to do is they're going to want to draft a quarterback number one and fire the coach. And let me say this. I think the idea that Cam Ward buys Brian Callahan more time, au contraire, mon frere. I think, if anything, it makes Callahan the easy target and the easy scapegoat if things don't go their way. And I think this is something I've been thinking about, when it comes to the entire just situation the Titans find themselves in. This year looks like, to me, it's setting up for Brian Callahan to get fired. And yet a lot of people, I think, are of the belief that, well, you can't do that to Cam Ward. You can't reset the clock on him. You can't bring in a new coach. You can't bring in a new terminology. You can't this, you can't that. And I think that is probably, in theory, the right approach. But that's what people say in May and June, is you can't. Get into September and October, and the narrative changes to he's holding back the quarterback. This time last year, I remember arguing with people about the Chicago Bears. And I said, actually, I remember right around the time that Carolina clinched the number one pick in the draft, which was going to Chicago in exchange for the Bryce Young trade. And I said to people, I'm like, they're going to draft Caleb Williams. And this idea of they could trade the pick and stay with Fields is ridiculous. They're going to draft Caleb Williams. Why is Matt Eberflus staying the coach? Why is this team not interested in going out and getting an offensive coach to pair with its young quarterback? Why is Eberflus, who's on the hot seat, why is he keeping the job? Oh, Jared, you don't understand. Eberflus, he's a good coach, and he just hired Shane Waldron, and by November, it was, they've got to go. Waldron's got to go. Eberflus has got to go. This is how it works. in the NFL, it is what I consider to be a musical blame game. The coach, the GM, the quarterback. It's always one of those guys is holding the other guys back. Remember when Mike Mularkey and his old coaches were winning games, but they were holding back Marcus Mariota and John Robinson? Remember when John Robinson was holding Mike Vrabel back? Remember when Mike Vrabel and Tim Kelly and Todd Downing were holding Will Levis back? Every year it's a new target. And Cam Ward will not be the target this year. Just like Drake May wasn't the target in New England, Caleb wasn't the target in Chicago. If they don't win, the mindset will change. Oh, we can't change things up on Cam. It will change to, we need somebody in here who can maximize Cam. We need somebody in here who's going to make this work. And then if they bring somebody else in and Cam's still not good, then the attention will turn to Cam. Because that's how this league works. And so I don't know what Brian Callahan's thinking. I don't know what the Titans are thinking. I don't know what Jim and Pat were thinking. But I think if anybody has this belief that drafting Cam Ward is going to give Brian Callahan more time, that all of a sudden they can win 4 games again next year, they're crazy. You know, Chris Sanders, we joked around yesterday. Chris Sanders says he expects the Titans to win 9 or 10 games this upcoming season. If they fall short of that, I think there's a pretty good chance Callahan's not coming back. And let's not forget, go look at Caleb Williams' stats. Caleb's stats last year were actually pretty good. The Bears won more games than you did. They went 5-12. And it still wasn't good enough because somebody's going to have to take the blame. So when I heard that, I trust Jim and Pat. I think those guys know ball through and through. You know, I love playing Pat Kerwin cuts. But when I heard that with Callahan, when those two were like, well, I mean, I just don't think that you can. I just don't think they can. Oh, yes, they can. And let me say this. Yes, they will. If this team does not show market improvement, and I'm talking competing for the playoffs type stuff, which I don't think is totally fair at this point, but that's what if they're not doing that, I think Callahan's out of here. And then this time next year, everybody will love the new guy, but will absolutely be noting, well, it's a new offense. It's a new terminology. Cam's struggling with this, and these guys weren't on the same page. And that's just how the league works. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones. Plus, I put the odds out. The Los Jared odds on Brian Callahan being the coach this time next year. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game.
I think one of the things unique to my journey in this profession is I've done it before too. I've been a part of a young quarterback, number 1 overall pick, coming into a team that picked number 1 for a reason. And we weren't good enough last year, so we're picking first, and we have a chance to add a really good player with the first overall pick, whatever it ends up being. But there is a lot of things that I learned from that first lesson of when you bring in a player like that, that'll help us in the process.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan talking about, hey, I've done this before with Joe Burrow. Oh, Joe Burrow is pretty special. And so the doing it and how much of it was done for you because Joe Burrow is the man, well, that we shall see. Let me just say this. Every now and then I'll bust out the lost Jared odds. David Reed, here are my odds, the lost Jared odds on Brian Callahan being the coach in 2026. No is the favorite at minus 300. Yes, plus 250. Fair or unfair?
So let's break this. For someone who's not a degenerate gambler, let's break this down in percentages.
It means it is significantly less likely that he'll be the coach than he won't be the coach.
Okay, I'm in favor of those odds then.
I'd say minus 300 to plus 250 is probably, and there is a mathematics on this. I'm going to guess, I'm saying 65%, 70%.
Yeah, I would say 70-30. He will not be the coach.
Here's why. Number one, this team stinks. They stink. I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, look at who's going to sack the quarterback on this year's team. I mean, the offensive line might be okay, but that's if the left tackle that you all hate, I actually think it'll be okay. But if the left tackle that you all hate better play much better than you're expecting him to play. The receivers, the tight ends, woof. Team stinks. Number two, I think the quarterback's going to be on an island all by himself. You guys are thinking, he's going to be Mahomes, Jared. Well, Mahomes sat on the bench for a year, but Mahomes also started with Kelsey and Hill and Eric Fisher and et cetera. You don't have any of that. Number three, and I said this to Corey Curtis. I said, I know that, Brian Callahan is the coach right now, so I trust the coach, Jared. But what has Brian Callahan done in 18 months of being the head coach of this program? What has he done? Give me one tangible thing he did that makes you feel confident that he can be a good coach. I was not impressed last year. I'm rooting for him, but rooting for him and betting on him are two totally different things. Number four, I don't think he made enough staff changes from last year. I thought that was a bad coaching staff last year, and he changed the special teams coach. And then five, his big adjustment to all of that was, we're going to focus in on the offseason program with accountability and leadership development and teamwork and all kinds of stuff. And the star player blew it off, which is not a good sign of them listening to you. So I think it's more likely than not Callahan's getting fired. Again, I'll put it at minus 300, the odds of Callahan getting fired. Greg in Clarksville says, no, Callahan, he's done. He's the scapegoat for the managers. Well, I also think it's going to be, hey, we need somebody better to coach up Cam. Another texter says, what is your definition of if things don't go their way? So some people have said to me, when it comes to Callahan and keeping his job, well, it depends on how Cam looks. If Cam looks great, but the defense looks bad, then I think, the only thing that matters when you're the quarterback in the NFL is whether or not a guy's winning games. Right now, everybody feels so much better about Jaden Daniels than they do Caleb Williams. Why? Because of the wins and the losses. The stats are eerily similar. It's the wins and the losses. I remember I asked Ryan Porth before the Titans played the Bears the first week of the season, and I said to him, I go, how will Bear fans feel if they lose to the Titans? Will they think it's an unmitigated disaster and go crazy? And he said, well, it depends on how Caleb looks. There's no way you can lose to the Titans with Caleb looking good. It's just how football is. So the one chance that Callahan has is if Cam looks incredible, but the team still loses. That's if they don't win games. That never happens. Again, that's Justin Herbert. And what's that done? Well, it got Anthony Lynn fired. And then it got Brandon Staley fired. If the quarterback looks good, it'll be because the team is winning. That's why. One texter says if the Titans don't win 8 games this year, it'll be like this. If Borgonzi gets the final say, Callahan will get another year. If Brinker gets the final say, Callahan will be gone. If Amy gets involved, Brinker is gone, Borgonzi will get all the power, and Callahan has a 50% chance of being the coach. Vrabel was an Amy firing, and Rand was a Chad Brinker firing. That's a hot take. I'll say this. I have no idea what Mike Borgonzi's thinking. None. With Brinker, I think that if this team doesn't win next year and Brinker gets the final say, and they're already on record saying Brinker gets the final say, but at the same time, we know that the owner ultimately gets the final say. If Brinker gets the final say, I think Callahan's gone. That's just me. Just a gut feel. By the way, the math is on this read that the minus 300 to plus 250, 72.4% are the odds that he's fired.
Okay, I can go with that.
Okay, so that's the Lost Jared odds. 72% Callahan's getting fired. Boy, that's a Joe Rex wrote percent if there ever was one. That's something Joe would do. Robbie goes, well, what are the odds you think that he'll be back? Joe, I'm going to say 72.4. But that is, I guess, what it is. 615-737-1025. TD joins us coming up next for the TD Power Hour. What does TD think about Brian Callahan and his seat as we approach training camp? We'll do that next. Stillman & Company, 1025, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, a Fireball Hot Take Friday on a Thursday because we are off tomorrow, but it is a Thursday at 4 o'clock, which means it's time for the TD Power Hour to Ron Davenport. TD, what's happened to the Mets?
I knew you were going to ask me that. It's all good, man. You know, everything is not always going to be perfect all the time, but the Braves have won, 2 straight over them, right?
2 in a row after losing a game to the Rockies, which I had heard the stories about the Rockies. I had not seen the Rockies this year.
Now that you've seen them,
the worst team I think I've ever seen.
Terrible.
Just unbelievable. TD, let's start on Brian Callahan. We played a cut from Jim Miller, Pat Kerwin about them saying, hey, they're not going to fire Callahan because they don't want to set Cam Ward back, which sounds good. But in theory, we've seen this happen quite a bit where a team drafts a quarterback high and after the first year fires the coach. In fact, 2 of the teams that picked quarterbacks at the top of the draft last year did that. So I do wonder this question. How warm do we think Brian Callahan's seat is?
Man, that seat is smoking. What are you talking about? It's on fire, man. He's absolutely on the hot seat. If they don't win, I say 5-6 games, and one of them has to be over the Patriots, I think Callahan could definitely end up being fired, right? And it is what it is. It's an organization that it's just crazy to me. 3 years in a row, you got the GM, the head coach, the GM getting fired, and it's just there's no stability, and that's not good for a young quarterback. And I've talked to Chad Brinker, talked to Mike Bergonzi about that. And if they don't win, that's what I think is going to happen.
Here's the thing that I guess I kind of wonder when it comes to Callahan. And I mean this with all due respect because I like Callahan, the guy. But in the year and a half that he's been the coach of the team, what good have you seen from him, TD?
What, from him or from the team?
From him.
Well, I think this offseason showed a lot of progress, just the ability to go back and look at how things were and recalibrate this program that they're doing. And I know, some people look at it as a joke, but I think it's a good example of being able to correct mistakes or find ways to address issues. So I do think that's good. I feel he does a good job of relating to the players. I think they like him. So that's something. On the field, though, it just after that first drive or two, it's just bad. And that has to get better.
So the one thing I'll say about the offseason program, isn't it kind of hard for this to be so fundamentally the coach in the right direction when the star player blew it off?
I knew that's what you were.
You had to know it was going to come.
I knew that's where you were going. Look, just because he wasn't there, I mean, he did say that he was in contact with the other players and with the coaching staff. He knew what was going on there. But, I'm just saying that offseason program, sans Jeffrey Simmons, I think it's a good sign, again, of seeing something wrong and taking measures to address it. It's voluntary, so Brian Callahan, none of them can make anybody come. But for the guys that were there, I definitely think it was beneficial.
Okay, let's say this. Now I'm really going to put you on the spot here with this because it just popped into my head, and I see you rolling your eyes on it because you know it's going to be crazy. But let's say that I found $10 billion. Let's say that my parents were secretly cajillionaires and they bought a team.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad said, and Brian Callahan gets fired at the end of the year. My dad calls you and says, TD, I just bought the Arizona Cardinals. I'm thinking about making a coaching change. What do you think about Brian Callahan? What would you say?
Well, he has a clear history of work with quarterbacks. He is a guy that seems to really relate to the players. He's still very new as a coach, so you're going to have growing pains. I would look at all the options. He's someone I would consider, but you really need to sit him down and get an understanding of how he's going to come in and change things. That would probably be my.
But not a yes or a no.
Who else is? What are the other options?
Sure. No, and the thing that's not fair to Callahan, but this is going to be discussed amongst the fans, are he's always going to be compared to Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
That's going to be, and I think they're two totally different coaches. Not obviously they're two totally different guys, but I think the thing with Vrabel is, as much of a good coach as I thought Vrabel was a good coach, and I think Vrabel holds people accountable.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that Vrabel has his issues too. They're different than Callahan's issues. Vrabel, I think, too loyal to guys he knows on the coaching staff. I don't trust Vrabel to be able to develop a quarterback. There are a lot of things that I think Vrabel can hold people accountable for a certain amount of time. And then when things don't go well, it becomes a little hypocritical. I don't think Callahan has that problem. With Callahan, I don't know if Callahan can hold people accountable, whereas I knew Vrabel could. But the fans are just going to look at it like we fired the great Mike Vrabel for Brian Callahan. And that's where I think it's probably a little unfair, but also it's kind of the situation.
Yeah, no, he came in after a very good coach, right? So obviously it's going to be a tough comparison. I disagree, though. I believe Brian Callahan does hold players accountable, and I think he's capable of doing that. And just because we don't see that tough guy type of image on the exterior, I know that there's accountability in that building.
You see Callahan light people up, though? Not on the outside. We did see him light Levis up on the sidelines that one time, but then he said he regretted doing that or regretted the cameras catching him do that.
Right. Not doing it, but the camera's catching him.
Do you think that on the inside he's lighting people up on a consistent basis?
I think so. Yeah. No, I know he's laying into people when necessary. Yes.
So with that being said, do you think it's a number of games that will decide Callahan's fate? Do you think it is the way Amy wakes up in the morning that will decide?
That's really what it is.
How Callahan will fare? What do we think, if we're being honest here, is going to be the judgment on Callahan?
I would say B, how Amy wakes up in the morning when the season's over. I think that's really, but yeah, I would honestly say it's all of the above. They got to win. That's the bottom line. If they win games, I think he'll be okay. But at the same time, you look at it, if they win games, but the defense is doing it and the offense is only averaging 17 points a game again, I think there's a chance, even with a 6 or 7 win season, if those wins are those types, I think you could definitely see, not definitely, I think you could see Callahan being fired.
Am I wrong for thinking that almost regardless of what happens, if they're not 7, 8, 9 wins, I think Callahan's gone? Because regardless of what's happening on the field, people are just going to judge it by the wins and losses, and they're going to say, well, he's not developing Cam well enough, even if Cam is doing okay for a rookie quarterback, because that's what people in the league, they just equate winning to quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wins are a QB stat. It's a QB measurement. Cam Ward, he even said it himself, when he said that quarterbacks are measured in wins. So it is what it is. But I think if they win 7, 8, 9 games, I think that's it would be really tough to understand firing a coach, after that, when the previous season they won 3. But again, everything is all relative. So it depends on how these games are being won, right? If your quarterback is progressing. If he's struggling, right? And let's say he struggles and they end up putting Levis out there and Levis lights stuff on fire and then I think there's a chance that they could part ways, if that were the situation.
TD is with us, 615-737-1025. We'll hit your phones at the end of the hour, as we always do. Coming up next, Pat Kerwin, not high on the weapons the Titans have around Cam Ward. We'll get TD's thoughts on that and where they go from here. And do they have enough around Cam Ward for him to be successful? We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Let's go for it. You got a young quarterback, so you want veteran receivers. I get it. I would do the same thing. But is this the best you could do? Calvin Ridley, 64-4. He was here before. 6 points. Why did I give him 6? Well, look at Pittman. Look at Pierce. Look at Pierce himself, what he got, and why I think a 6 is appropriate. You know, Pittman had 69 and 3 touchdowns. Your guy had 64-4. Same grade, 6. Now what do you want to do? You want to call Lockett number 2, or do you want to call Van Jefferson? I'll call Lockett number 2, since he almost had double. Actually, he did have double the receptions and the same touchdowns. So you slide Lockett into the 2 spot. He's an older guy. He'll be very good for the quarterback for a year or two, and that'll be the end of it. I thought Tyler Lockett personally could have gone to a couple other places, but he went here. I gave him a 4 out of 6. He used to be a 6 out of 6 when he was in his heyday, and sometimes he was the 1. Van Jefferson slides to the 3 spot where he belongs with 24 catches and 2 touchdowns. By the way, he played 63% of the plays. He should have been able to do better than 24 receptions, but he's who he is. He gets a 3, and I could have made it a 2, but I get why he's there, and the quarterback's going to need him. Ridley, Lockett, Jefferson. Now you go to the backups. 2 rookies, that's 0. Burks, a total disaster, 0. Add it all up is 12.
12 points. I believe that's our lowest score to date, would be the Tennessee Titans. So
it's getting there.
TD, that was Jim Miller, Pat Kerwin, Sirius XM NFL Radio. Boy, that's tough to hear when it comes to the Titans receivers.
Mm-hmm.
So I ask you this question. Is there enough around Cam Ward for Cam Ward to be able to succeed his first year?
I think they need more. I think they need more proven options. Or, hey, well, I mean, Tyler Lockett's proven, but I think they need more proven younger options. I'll put it that way. I don't think there's enough around him for Cam Ward to just go out there and hit cruise control and be good to go. I think it's going to be a fight for every yard that they try to get. Callahan is really, and Nick Holtz and Bo Hart agree, they're going to have to really draw stuff up to get these guys open. I think it's going to be more of a balance of scheme and player as opposed to one or the other fueling the ship.
When it comes to Cam and what's around him, do you have faith that the defense will be good enough to not put so much pressure on him, saying, hey, you know, they're only giving up 20 points a game. You only have to go score 21. Or are you also worried about the defense?
Well, I think if you're going to look at it from that perspective, I don't think the Titans should be confident from that perspective. We still don't like what is the secondary going to look like? The cornerback position. What is L'Jarius Sneed's status? Is he going to be able to play? Right? Is Jarvis Brownlee Jr. going to continue to extend? How will the safeties look? What about the pass rush? There's a lot to be concerned about on that defensive side of it. So no, I wouldn't be confident that they could go out and carry the torch. This team, they were 3-14 last year.
Mm-hmm.
There should be nothing assumed as far as the success is concerned. Nothing.
Here's what worries me, though, about that is a young quarterback going into that with all the hype of being the number 1 pick and being dealt a hand that he can't win with, and then how that affects his development.
No, I think he'll be fine. I mean, this is a guy, like, I don't know if you got to read the story I did for Father's Day, but I mean, like, this is a dude, he went to the Texas A&M camp, you know, and out through the quarterback who he's now at Georgia Tech, Haynes King, I think his name Haynes
yep.
King.
Haynes King, he sucks.
Out through, but I mean, at the time, like, that dude was a 4-star. He was 4-star. And they told him, look, straight up, like, and this is the school he wanted to go to. They told him, look, man, like, we got 1 scholarship left for the quarterback position, and it's going to him. He just bounced back, went to another camp, and kept going to camps. Like, I think if you look at Cameron Ward, he's built to handle adversity. I don't think there's anything on the football field adversity wise that will break him.
But how many quarterbacks have we seen, let's say over the last 15 years, 10 years, where they have just gotten no help and have found a way to develop into something? And that's where I look at Cam and I'm like, they're putting him out here. I hear the Titans fans that are like, Jared, he's McNair. Jared, he's Mahomes. And I'm like, those were dudes that sat on the bench. Those were dudes that needed Eddie George around him, needed Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill around him, needed Andy Reid coaching him. You know, I have a hard time of, hey, Cam's going to take his lumps, but Cam's going to be fine, because I feel like this league and the fans in it are so impatient that it ruins the young guys.
I think it could ruin the wrong guy. But again, I really feel that the Titans got the right one in this situation, and he's going to be fine regardless of what happens. And look, the impatience is correct, but it may not happen this year. But I think eventually he's going to be a top tier type of quarterback. I think he's got the talent there, but obviously that's all situation based, right? You got to make sure that you have stability. You got to make sure the things have to happen in order for that success to be found.
How many guys, and I'm trying to think this off the top of my head, just got their teeth kicked in with a bad team and made it through to the other side? Like Burrow got his teeth kicked in, got his knee blown up, got all of that, and he's made it through to the other side. Lamar Jackson went to a good team.
I think Josh Allen, he had some lumps.
But that was a team that had a top 5 defense in the NFL his first 2 years.
You just asked how many guys, and I'm just telling you one of them.
But Josh Allen made the playoffs in year 2 because of the team around him. Cam doesn't have that.
That first year for Allen was tough.
Would you say Herbert overcame bad around him?
No. Herbert had Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. What's bad about that?
Well, he also had Staley coaching him, and
you did have that. But I mean, offensively, they were scoring points still.
What I guess I'm trying to figure out, though, is how is Cam different than all these other quarterbacks like Baker or Sam Darnold or Geno Smith or all these other guys that early in their careers got their teeth kicked in, especially with bad teams, bad organizations, bad coaching. And Cam is going to be able to elevate everybody on the other side. What makes him different than all those other guys that succumbed to the bad organizations until they got somewhere else, or they were in the league now 6-7 years? Because you and I both know the Titans are not going to wait 6 or 7 years on Cam Ward.
Well, what makes you think the Titans are the same as all those organizations? Like, again, it's all situational, right?
But the Titans, the team stinks and the organization.
If you're looking, because I know you like to do this, I like to look for the parallel. So if you're looking for parallels, right? Well, you do have a guy that was in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow and saw Joe Burrow fight through and come out on the other side. If you're looking for commonalities, you got that one. So look, I'm just not going to sit here and say, hey, Cam Ward, he can't overcome. No, I'm not going to sit here and say that, because I believe that he can. And I think, there's something that could be said about what you go through on your path that will allow you to maintain and continue to be able to, fight through adversity.
Do you think that the 0-star thing, going from Incarnate Word to Washington State to Miami, do you think that actually will matter in terms of the NFL journey?
It's a part of his story. I think the whole story itself is what will matter. And the 0-star part of it that's part of it. It's not all of it. So through the different things, his upbringing, everything, I think he was pretty well built for adverse situations.
That's a lofty bar, though, to say, hey, we're going to put you in the same spot as Burrow, and we're going to hope and pray for the same result. And the worst part about that, too, TD, is if they end up, like, one of the big things, not that Burrow wouldn't be good based on his receivers, but, it does help to have Jamar Chase, wide receiver.
Yeah. The best receiver in the game. Oh, yeah, that helps.
if the Titans find themselves in a position where they're drafting Jamar Chase next year, Callahan ain't gonna be the coach.
No, I don't think so. I don't think they'll have the patience in order to have top 5 picks back to back. No.
TD is with us. The polarizing Cam Ward docu-series on Tubi. I can already see the smile on TD's face. Is this the Summer of Mayo 2.0? We'll get into that with TD next, Stillman and Company. And, of course, we'll hit your phones at the end of the hour, 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game. Let's talk about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. Have you ever called a plumber, an electrician, an HVAC tech, and felt like they were trying to sell you something that you did not need? I do. If a deal sounds too good to be true, like a $99 club membership or a $29 tune-up, it is because it is. Don't get hooked. The reality is they have to find something to fix so they can cover their costs for the quote-unquote discounted club memberships. Unlike the other guys, Hiller never offers deals designed to trick you or sell you something that you do not need. And you hear me talking all the time about my friends at Hiller, but this is why I trust Hiller in my home. So do like I do and schedule online. I use my phone and I go to happyhiller.com and bang, they're right there, right then. That's happyhiller.com. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical, proud supporters, the Preds of Falls and Vandy. Hiller, call the Hatfish Truck today.
let's go back to Levis. I said it last year. It's like, well, you better earn it. You better do something first, which I'm sure was like Jared State. You gotta earn it. And guess what? Thank God he did it. If I'm Will Levis's agent, mom, if I'm him, his girlfriend, good thing you did those Mayo commercials, bro, because you're not getting anybody else knocking on your door right now. I mean, get out of here. You do not have to earn doing a commercial or anything that's going to make you money. If you've earned it by what you've done already, which is, get yourself to the point where you're in the NFL, yeah, go ahead and do that. I mean, again, unless it's actually like infringing, hey, coach, I can't make practice. There is zero discussion about these things other than just stupid discussion by people who would be complete idiots if they turned these things down. Complete idiots. So please spare me this pearl clutching over this crap. Now, I will say one thing about this. Does it really need to be 6 parts? That's the one. That's the one area. That's the one area where I would agree with young Andrew.
There you go. That was Rex Road earlier this week. TD, very polarizing topic. The Cam Ward docu-series headed to Tubi in September. And let me just say, it is nice to not be the one guy who is anti something and everybody else is pro something. Buck went scorched earth on Cam Ward's decision to have a 6-part docu-series on Tubi. Joe pushing in the other direction. I'm just kind of the belief of like, let's do well in the NFL first. And then when the story's done or when the story is on its way, then let's put the story out there. That's just kind of me. Certainly not like, as angry about it as Buck. But is this the summer of mayonnaise 2.0?
It's totally different. I mean, I don't understand like who made you or Buck or anyone else, so against this. Like, who put you guys in a position to where you're an authority on whether or not this is a right thing to do? I don't know who did. It's, to me, all right, look, a lot of the hay is already in the barn. Like, these are documentaries that this docuseries, it shows things that have already happened. So that's situation number one. But then situation number two, is it going to take away from what he could do on the field? And then situation number three, the man did accomplish something that's pretty remarkable. He was the number 1 pick in the draft. Like, to Rex Rowe's point, I think he's done some things to put himself in position to, if that's something that the organization wanted to do, fine. I don't think it should be an issue at all. And then on top of that, if you're going to compare it to the Mayo situation, to Levis' situation, I mean, look, like, Cam Ward didn't say a thing about that throughout the whole OTAs and minicamp. But if you remember the summer of Mayo, right, remember the press conference where he brought the cologne there and he was spraying it and testing it on people, which, by the way, it does remind me of being in the lobby of the W or one of those. It's a bad scent to spray on you, but it's a pretty good air freshener, I must say.
Did you buy a bottle?
I didn't buy it. The company sent it to me.
Oh, they didn't send me anything.
Well, I mean,
I know. I guess.
I
know. I see myself on the pecking order.
Yeah. No.
So let me say this in comparison to the summer of mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Do you think that the summer of mayonnaise was a bad idea on Will Levis's part?
I think it was. I think, but see, there's also more to that, right? Because remember the whole ordeal about Levis, bro, if I could ask Peyton Manning like one thing, you know what I mean? It's not going to be, hey, how do I market myself? No, I'm not asking that. Like, that's distasteful to me. If I could ask him one thing, it's going to be, and we play the same position, it's going to be about that position, not how can you market yourself. You know what I mean? So I think there was a lot more surrounding that just, it was bad.
Here was my thing. At the time, my criticism was, if you don't do well, you're going to be made fun of. And I don't know if that's something you talk about Levis. That's not something I just don't think that you want to go through, but that's fine. My bigger issue too on the Levis front, where I don't think it applies to Cam, is like after Levis got drafted and he fell in the draft for whatever reason but the goofy crap had to be a part of it. And after that, he was like, hey, like the banana peel and the mayonnaise, like that's all. I'm focused on football.
He did say that.
And then when Brian Callahan got the job, Brian Callahan was like, I don't really know Will Levis. I'm going to get to know him. But, the banana peel and the mayonnaise, that's what I know of him because that's his reputation. But, I'm going to move past that and, fresh start. So when you're saying like, hey, the banana peel and the mayonnaise is in the past, and then you win 3 games as a starter your rookie year and you're starting to do mayonnaise commercials, is the mayonnaise really in the past?
Good point.
That was the thing that I think kind of bothered me a little bit. With Cam, what I look at, and I'm like, these young people today, what they value as having arrived. This is I've arrived. I got my own mayonnaise commercial. I've arrived. And I'm hoping Cam doesn't look at this like I've got my own docu-series. I've arrived. That's what scares me a little bit.
I don't think he's going to look at it that way. The best advice, he told me when I asked him the best advice his dad gave him in his whole life.
Listen to the Jared Stillman program?
Yeah, exactly. No, it was actually, you got your chance to play in the NFL. Don't F it up. That was the best advice. Man, you really didn't read my story. That is a darn shame.
Well, it was my first Father's Day. I was
Father's
celebrating
Day
my first Father's Day.
Was days ago, but it's okay. It's okay.
I know you worked hard on it. I'm not going to say I didn't read it. I'm not going to say I didn't read it. I know you worked hard on it.
I know where I am in the pecking order.
It's no. You're getting the mayonnaise perfume.
It's really appalling for the guy that consumes more media content than anybody and is a friend of mine. And we talked about this story and you didn't read it. Wow.
I know, and I promoted the story too.
Right. That's you did like the old Clint Eastwood movies. Go ahead, put your chin up. I put my chin up and you just slapped me right in the face. That's
no. It's just I like the drama and the gossip, and that's more wholesome. If that it's more of a wholesome family feeling.
You're good.
You know
man.
me.
I'm just messing with you.
If you got a story that's some like when you did that Rand and Vrabel story, they brought you in there and said we're buddies. That's the gossip. I'm here for it.
You like that, huh?
I will say this when it comes to Cam. I want to see the commitment myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to see. I don't want Mario Cristobal to tell me about the commitment. I want to see the commitment myself.
But have you not seen anything?
Well, I just don't think there hasn't been enough time, for him to be able to do those kind of day in, day out things.
Right. No, I mean, look, for someone like that's coming from your perspective, I hear what you're saying, but I think he's done some things to make you think like, yeah, you know what? I think this guy is committed. I think he's done some things to at least put himself in that light.
The one thing I'll say about Cam Ward, I feel pretty strongly that there's a chance Louisville may have had a shot at getting him out of Washington State.
I remember hearing the story, yeah.
And they didn't get him, and he put a foot up their ass.
Yeah.
And so that means something to me.
Yeah. Or even look at what he said. Look at what he said, right? You guys, whoever you pass on me, I'm going to come back and keep making you pay.
It's not, and I know this is, and I take him more seriously than I take Johnny Manziel.
Okay.
But the words, remember Johnny Manziel texted Dowell Loggins, and Dowell Loggins ran his phone to Jimmy Haslam, and it was like, come on, brother, let's wreck this league together.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was the moment that we had to take Johnny. It's like, oh, okay. Anybody will say, oh, I'll kick your ass if you don't pick me. But
then why haven't so many people said it?
I was going to say the fact that Cam actually did it and stuck a foot up somebody's rear end, that does mean something to me.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of this, though, is I do wonder, like this docu-series and this number one pick thing and this accomplishment and this. I read Tim Grover's book. He's Michael and Kobe and Dwayne Wade's personal trainer. And he talks about how these incredible pro athletes at the level of Jordan and Kobe, that there are landmines all around you as an athlete. And It's how do you deal with the landmines? And one of the things that Tim Grover pointed out was, do you feel like when you got drafted that you signed your contract, you got your bonus, you bought your car, you got your house, you got your, how do you handle that landmine? And when I see, again, a docu-series about being the number one pick, there is a part of me that does worry about, like, bro, this ain't the finish line. This is the starting point here.
Do you really think Cameron Ward thinks that he's finished? You can't possibly really think that.
I am worried that Cam thinks it might be easier than the journey is.
No. I think don't let the nonchalant, calm, don't let that fool you. He understands the journey. He understands the journey and understands that it really is just beginning. Because again, his dad, like, that's the advice. Like, hey, don't mess it up. Like, and the journey that he's already been on wasn't easy, right? To get to this point. The journey to maintain it is only going to be harder. And I think he fully understands that.
I have a theory, by the way. I want your opinion on this theory. Titan fans, no matter who they draft, they're going to love him and think that that guy's the next coming of whatever.
That's a fan, period.
Right.
Listen, I fell victim. I once thought Kaz Matsui was going to take the MLB by storm.
Kaz Matsui, first pitch you ever saw in the big leagues, hit a home run off Russ Ortiz. But
and that's what had me thinking it. But you and I both know that they got the wrong Matsui.
I think Vince Young and Mariota have done to me, like, I'll never believe it until I truly see it. Because Vince Young, and like, again, Vince had his issues off the field at the end of the day, and the offense was terrible. And, I don't blame that on Vince. Vince Young was that freaking dude coming out of college.
Another example of situational importance. Right? He and Norm Chow, it never, and then what was the guy after him? Rest in peace. Heimerdinger, was it? It never mixed.
I still believe that if what the Ravens did for Lamar Jackson, if they had done that for Vince, he would have been different. That's just how I feel. But because of that, like, TD, and I know you were keeping up with it and everything else. Like, I know that you watched national championship game when Vince Young did his thing, and I know that you remember when he won Rookie of the Year. But in this town, Vince Young had lit this city on fire.
Yeah.
And I never want to get, I just think I'm too skeptical to get my hopes up for it.
No, I get it. And look, like, think about it, right? After that Falcons game, hey, even Jeffrey Simmons, like, hey, we got a quarterback. Because he lit them up, and you saw what happened, so I get it. I know what you mean. And it is one of those things where, okay, yeah, show me. But I think along that way, and everybody looks at things differently, but along that way, what you're doing is kind of like look for reasons why too, right? Because balance it out, because it feels like with this Cameron Ward situation, you're looking for, because you're so scarred, you're looking for, hey man, like, this is an example of how it may not work. You know what I mean? But also look at reasons why it may.
It's funny about that Falcons game. After Levis had that game, I was like, guys, remember Mariota's first game?
Yeah.
Remember, because you will not believe this. After Mariota's first game, TD, I was very young. This was 10 years ago. I was very young on the radio. And I was like, everybody's saying it's only one game. I'm saying they've got the next Aaron Rodgers or the next Tom Brady.
Oh, that's what you were doing?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I've been hardened over the years, TD.
I get it.
It's like God hardening Pharaoh's heart. I don't know how it happened, but it did. Your phones for TD are next. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. 615-737-1025. We'll hit them next. Stillman & Company, 1025 again. TD Power Hour, Teron Davenport with us. It is a Fireball Hot Take Friday on this Thursday. TD, do you have a thought or do you want to go right to the people?
Man, I feel like I'm at a Preds game and it's the power play.
I know. RIP, though, to DMX.
Yeah, definitely.
I was a big DMX fan growing up.
Always, man. Always. From the moment he came out, man, always. He was that dude, man. Him and the Locks. Yeah, the Yonkers crew.
For that, let's go to the phones. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Adam is going to kick us off here. Adam, you're on with TD. Go ahead.
Hey, TD, quick question for you. So, have you seen anything? Because I'm all in with Cam. I got to be. Like, I'm too depressed if I don't get all in with Cam. So, I just assume he's going to be great. Is there anything that you've seen from him that you're like, Levis didn't do this last year? Like, I'm missing this with Levis last year. Is there anything that just stands out that this is definitely a difference maker because Levis didn't do this?
That's a great question. And I love the upbeat tone to your voice, man. Sometimes I hear you talking, I'm like, man, we got to help my man out. I'll give you one thing, Adam, one thing, and it hit me on day 2 of training camp or mini camp. He and Calvin Ridley are connecting on deep passes. Remember, that never happened last year, right?
But it was hot outside, TD.
Hey, well, you know, and you know, the other thing that's interesting also is look at here's one. The difference, Calvin Ridley to me this year is a lot different than last year. He still has the sense of urgency, but he's more upbeat. You know, what did he say on one of the ones where they weren't able to connect? He said, "Oh, well, you know, I wasn't really running."
Mm-hmm.
But when asked about, because I forget what I asked him about Cam, but he was like, yeah, man, like, you know, I got to make sure that I do what I got to do to catch the ball. Like, it's different. So I think just Calvin Ridley himself is an example. And I'm not trying to put ideas or words into Calvin Ridley's mouth or ideas into the minds of fans. But to me, there seems like a difference.
What do you think happened with Levis last year? Because this time last year, to your point, like Cam's definitely better this year than Levis was up until this point last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like everything was excused last year as far as the Titans were concerned with Levis. It was like, oh, well, you know, I made the joke about it being hot outside, but he throws that interception in the Seahawk practice, and it's like, oh, it'll be fine. We have plenty of reps. Oh, 7-on-7, the ball bounced in the lake. Oh, you know, Denard's defense is so good. Oh.
You won't let that ball in the lake go.
I could not believe that, man, when that happened. But I say all of that to say, like, it's hard for me to get excited about anything anybody says with the Titans after last year when every excuse was made for why the offense stunk. And the reality was the offense stunk.
It did stink, man. It definitely stunk. But I think there's a different level of confidence, excitement, you know, and I don't think it's just Ridley. I mean, I think it's extended to other players too.
One texter into the text line says, TD, who on this team is better than everybody thinks and can surprise people who isn't Cam Ward and isn't a rookie?
Just period, like no position, just period.
I guess.
You know, honestly, all right, I'm going to say it. I think James Williams is going to get the starting job, and I think he's a guy that's going to rack up an awful lot of tackles. So I think if I had to pick one that's going to surprise, it'd be him.
James Williams over Cedric Gray?
And, you know, I like me some Cedric Gray now. But I think if it continues to kind of the way it is right now, I think so. But those guys are going to rotate a lot. That's already something we've seen that what happened. So
I did have a theory earlier this week. I don't know if you watched the UFL championship. I did not.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, the NFL to me has got to, for this thing to really work, I think the NFL has to get involved with the UFL, and they have to basically make it their minor leagues, have 8 teams, 4 teams per team based solely on geography. So I had ChatGPT do it, and then we tweaked it a little bit, but it'd be Tennessee, Dallas, Houston, and New Orleans would be a team.
Mm-hmm.
Each team sends 9 players plus a quarterback. And I had the Titans sending Will Levis, Jalen Duncan, Jalen Harrell, Cedric Gray, Bryce Oliver, Andrew Rupchich, Jaquan Jackson, Gabe Judy-Lally, David Martin Robinson, and James Williams. No rookies can go because they get drafted as this thing's already going. Number one, do you think the NFL should do something like that? Would you
Yes.
be more interested if they did something like that? And what do you think of the list that I say, okay, this is who the Titans should send out there?
I agree with the list. Yes, that's something we talk about it all the time. Myself, Emery Hunt for Football Game Plan, and the crew in our group chat. We talk about that all the time, how the NFL needs a development league. So absolutely, I'm on board with it. Here's something real quick though. The DC Defenders, you know who their outside linebacker is, right?
The outside linebacker for the DC Defenders.
Derek,
Do not
one of them.
Vic
One of their
Beasley.
top ones. No, Derek Roberson.
Really?
Yeah, he had
Blast
a sack.
from the past.
Yeah, he had a sack. I was watching the conference championship against the St. Louis Battlehawks, who Anthony Beck, their head coach, is a really good friend of mine. So, I always support my guy. So I was watching it, and yeah, their quarterback got rocked by Derek Roberson. Derek Roberson had a good game in that. He had 2 sacks, forced fumble. Yeah, he was a beast.
I also think too, like, and I know people will say, well, it's a year-round game. I think if I'm like Cedric Gray, I want to go play in the spring league after what happened last year so that I can get the reps. If I'm, David Martin Robinson and I was inactive every week last year, I think I want to play.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Mitch is up next here on the TD Power Hour. Mitch, you're on with TD. Thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey guys, here's my question. If you just think about the list of the quarterbacks we've named throughout the last couple minutes, are we sure we're not Trevor Lawrencing these guys, and it's not our coaching and our ownership, and that's not the reason these quarterbacks are growing and actually, being productive? Or do you think we're just drafting the wrong people? Because I really feel like Levis was a big reach. Now I feel like Cam's a big reach, and we just keep going down the same process of getting okay quarterbacks that we can't develop, and then we trash them. Just like the same reason, we trade Derrick Henry. We're not serious about being good. Anyway, that's my question.
Yeah. Well, Derrick Henry wasn't traded. He left via free agency. He wanted to go to Baltimore. But I hear what you're saying, Mitch, just as far as wondering who's to blame. I think it's all collective. But I believe that this time around, I think this team will get it right. I think this group will get it right. You have, Mike Borgonzi. You have Brian Callahan. You have Reggie McKenzie, you got Chad Brinker in there. I think just everything that they have going together, the collective. I was talking to Chad Brinker the one time, and he made a good point. They have over 100 years of scouting experience in their upper, if you mix in Dave Ziegler too. So I think you look at that, and then you look at Cameron Ward. I don't think that he's a reach. I think that he's a very good quarterback, and I think that he's gonna be productive for this team.
One texter asked, TD, why do you keep calling him Cameron?
Well, that's the name that his father once uses when he talks about him. He said that's what he wants also, Cameron.
You know what it sounds like to me?
What?
Mama call him Clay. I'm going to call him Clay.
Well, it's on his birth certificate, Cameron.
Mama call him Cameron. I'm going to call him Cameron.
There you go.
Now, texter says, TD, what do you make of Shedeur Sanders speeding tickets?
Hey, that's reckless driving. It's reckless driving. And look, it happens. I think, I don't know if you saw the video, the dash cam, or whatever it's called, the body cam video. He was cooperative, and he just handled it. It's careless. What can I say?
I'm not going to lie. Like, I haven't driven fast before. I usually don't go that fast. But I'm also not Shadeur's age anymore. Mm-hmm. But it's just like, I think it's a little ridiculous and I know Lamar one time was speeding and put it on Instagram, which was kind of dangerous.
Oh, go ahead. My bad.
Well, I'd say it was dangerous to go Instagram live while you're driving.
Mm-hmm.
But they made a big deal about Lamar speeding. Like, people make a big deal about the Georgia Bulldogs and how they all speed.
Yeah.
My thing would just be this. Like, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
No, I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I do have an issue with 101 and a 40-mile.
Was that the zone he was in?
Yeah, it was either 40 or 60.
It was 60.
60, excuse me.
But we're also living in a post-Henry Ruggs world, so this should should not be.
Did you see Henry Ruggs spoke?
Yes.
At an assembly in Vegas. I thought that was interesting.
It's too bad that he got cut from the Raiders because that's usually the team that would pick him up. after that. I mean, he's going. I think he's
Nobody
going to
was-
get back in the league, though.
We'll see.
I think he's going to. That's just me on.
It's crazy.
that
It's
front.
been 5 years, man.
Crazy. TD, there's something your colleague Stephen Holder said that piqued my interest. So before we play that cut on the other side, I just want to ask you from a credibility sake. I guess Stephen Holder's not your colleague anymore. He used to be, right?
No, he still is. That's
He
my
is?
guy.
Okay.
Stephen,
I get-
Hull- he's of all the nation. I talk to him more than anybody else. Like that's like a brother, man.
So when Stephen Holder says something, we listen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, because it's very, very well. He's better sourced than with the Colts than me with the Titans. Put it like that.
Okay. So there you go. There's something he said that really piqued my interest that I want to get to next. And we will. TD, good to see you as always.
All right, good to be seen. Happy Juneteenth, everybody.
Absolutely. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. So the other day, I was listening to Robbie and Rexroad, and they had Stephen Holder on their program. And Stephen Holder covers the Colts for ESPN. Just like TD said, hey, he's as connected, if not more connected, with the Colts than TD is with the Titans. And anytime I have an opinion about any quarterback, the haters out there, and again, I'm smart enough to know that like 2/3 of my audience doesn't like me. I'm okay with that. But the haters, every time I have an opinion on a quarterback they don't like, say, well, you like Anthony Richardson and he sucks. And no matter how many times I say this, no matter how many times I bring this up, everything Indianapolis has done with Anthony Richardson, I would have done differently. And yet, to the hater crew, it's as if none of it matters. And that what Anthony Richardson is today, which is no doubt at this point, he's a bust, would have happened no matter what. Now, I don't believe that. I don't believe that if the Colts had done things differently, that it would be different. And let me throw in this. In the spring of 2023, when I did love Anthony Richardson, I put out there, hey, this is a project, and it might not work out. And if it doesn't work out and I'm the general manager, I might be getting fired because I am taking a risk on the physical tools that Anthony Richardson has and the development program of having him succeed. So, in all seriousness, if I was GM, I could be packing up my desk because I went all in on Anthony Richardson. And to this point, Anthony Richardson has been a bust. Now, again, like I said, the way that they've done it is not the way I would have done it. But for some of you people, you don't seem to care. But again, I was listening to Stephen Holder, and he was talking on Robbie and Rexroad about Anthony Richardson and how Anthony Richardson's problems are born out of ignorance more than anything else, but not the negative connotation of the word ignorance the way that you think, saying that somebody is choosing to be ignorant. That's not the case. This is what Stephen Holder said about Anthony Richardson.
Anthony has had to learn some hard lessons because, and not because, he's not diligent or not serious. I think it's more about just ignorance. And ignorance, people have a bad reaction to that word sometimes. I just think that just means you don't know any better. And I think that's a failure of on his part and the organization's part. And so, for example, there's just an expectation with quarterbacks in this league that you're going to go over and above. And the problem with Anthony is that I think most quarterbacks today, most of these young quarterbacks who are blue chip recruits coming up, they grew up in a world where quarterbacks are groomed like pros at even the high school level. And Anthony was not like that. He went to his neighborhood high school. He wasn't at all the big national camps. He just was this superhuman athlete. And he shows up at Florida and they're like, oh, this guy's really good. Because he grew up down the street from the campus, by the way. And so, yes, he ends up at Florida because he's a local kid. And then he ends up in this world where now he is part of that group of quarterbacks, but he doesn't know how to be that guy, right?
Okay. He doesn't know how to be that guy. Not, hey, he's choosing not to be that guy. It's he doesn't know. And I was listening again in the last segment. We had that one caller that was like, TD, is it us? Are we talking about the Titans? Are we Trevor Lawrencing this whole situation? Again, screwing him up. I remember when Trevor Lawrence was scheduled to be picked by the Jags, and the Jags announced that when it came to their future, it was going to be Urban Meyer who was going to be leading the organization. And here are the Jags getting ready to take this generational quarterback, and I was sitting over there as a Titan fan. Yeah! You good, Urban Meyer. And the late, great Mark Howard tried to talk me out of it, saying he thought Urban would be successful. Trevor Maddich, and you know I love Trevor. Trevor was trying to talk me out of it, saying he thought he'd be successful. But I knew Urban Meyer didn't know what he was doing as far as the NFL was concerned. And I'm not sure if Trevor Lawrence ever has recovered from what happened to him with Urban Meyer. That's when I go back to Richardson. And after I listened to what Stephen Holder said, I thought, this is why he should have sat the bench. Again, this is Stephen Holder saying it's not ignorance from the standpoint that he's choosing to be ignorant. It's he just didn't know how to be a quarterback in the NFL. That's when you sit the bench. Speaking of Trevor Lawrence, he told Anthony Richardson to protect himself after his first game. You know when the quarterbacks go and shake hands? After the first game of Anthony Richardson's career, he played Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence went up to him. After the game was over, they asked Trevor Lawrence, what'd you say to Anthony? Trevor Lawrence said, I said, good game, and just protect yourself because you can't take the hits you took in college. You can't do that in this league. And then Anthony Richardson went out, got hurt, and it was a lost season. Then Anthony Richardson had the tap out. And when he had the tap out, people said, he's a bad guy or he's a bad teammate. But a savvy veteran quarterback would know not to do those things. Would also know to say to the media when they ask what happened on the tap out, make up an excuse. Oh, yeah, I thought I had sprained my ankle on that play, so I went to the sideline because I didn't think I'd be mobile for the next play. Again, don't say you're tired. Or if you are tired, get to the line of scrimmage instead of tapping out. Get to the line of scrimmage after the quarterback tells you, or after the coach tells you the play. Get to the line of scrimmage and then go up there and go 53, 52, Mike 52, Mike 50. Timeout. Timeout. Don't tell anybody you need a break, but just call timeout. I didn't like the look they had. Again, that's what a savvy veteran would do. But Anthony Richardson didn't know to do that. Because, again, he was put out before he was ready. And that takes me to the Titans. And that takes me to Cam Ward. And that takes me to the question that was asked by the caller of, are you sure we're not Trevor Lawrencing these guys? Because anytime I bring up the idea that Cam Ward should sit the bench, I get yelled at and screamed at. How dare you from Titans fans? Even though Patrick Mahomes sat the bench, Lamar Jackson sat the bench, Aaron Rodgers sat the bench. Tom Brady sat the bench. Brett Favre sat the bench in Atlanta. And then when he got traded to Green Bay, he sat the bench there behind the Magic Man, Don Majkowski. Because there are valuable lessons to be learned from watching instead of doing. And yet again, with Titan fans, anytime I bring up this idea of, hey, let's bring the young quarterback along slowly. Let's try to set him up for success, not set him up for failure. Let's let him watch Brandon Allen and how Brandon Allen goes about doing it. I get to, oh, no, Jared, you crazy. He's so good. Oh, my God. If Trevor Lawrence can be screwed up, you don't think Cam Ward can be too. Again, Anthony Richardson, the things you think about him, you guys, I see it all the time. You guys think that he would have been bad no matter what. And maybe you're right, but it doesn't sound that way listening to Stephen Holder talk. So, again, when it comes to Cam Ward, I'm just saying, are you sure that he has to rush out there and play right away? Or could Brandon Allen start at quarterback? And again, I would agree. I think they need a better quarterback to be the first guy. But would he be better off with Brandon Allen being the Kurt Warner to Eli Manning? Because for some reason, Titan fans are just convinced that there's absolutely no way, no how that the Titans can screw up this quarterback, even though all the Titans have done since they moved to town is screw up quarterbacks. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. And I think it's easy to look back when you know the end of the story. And there's something about the Titans and some of the decisions they've made where looking back on it, I do feel like somebody didn't get enough credit for knowing the right thing to do. Explain. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
and everyone asks me all the time around the draft, pre-draft, which of these kids is going to be the most successful? There's two answers. One, it's up to them. And two is show me the people that are around them and are helping to develop them. It's not necessarily about someone's physical potential all the time. So much of it is about, can you retain information? Can you process it? Can you use the information? Are you willing to study and go through the intricate details of the game like Drew Brees was, like Peyton Manning was, like Phillip Rivers was, like some of the all-time great John Elway was, some of the all-time great quarterbacks were. You could be very physically talented. You could absolutely go to the wrong fit and have a coach instruct you to do things that are almost impossible to do.
Right.
You can't assume that what these young athletes are being told, that every coach is the same. Some coach may have one perspective, another coach may have another perspective.
There you go. That was Tom Brady talking about the development of quarterbacks, saying, I get asked in the draft, who's the guy, who's not the guy? And I'm telling you, it's more than just the guy's physical abilities. It's more than just, it's who's around him, who's supporting him, who's helping him. And with the Titans, team's not very good. Defense isn't very good. I'm not convinced Callahan as the coach is very good. And I keep going back to this Anthony Richardson thing. Again, maybe it's my own bias that I absolutely loved the tools that Anthony Richardson had. I think I saw a scout say, think of Michael Vick with Brett Favre's arm. I would say this. Excuse me. Think about Lamar Jackson with Cam Newton's body. That's what I think you're getting with Anthony Richardson. He was never going to be the most accurate passer in the league, but you cater the offense to fit around him. Again, Jalen Hurts is the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. But you build a team around him. And this entire thing in Indy, when Stephen Holder, who, again, TD texted me, and he said Holder is insanely plugged in when it comes to the Colts and Richardson. And so when Stephen Holder is sitting there saying, like, Anthony Richardson he didn't know better. He didn't grow up going to quarterback school like all these other guys did. He wasn't. That takes me back to Shane Steichen not knowing what he was doing. But that's a first-time head coach who had no experience as a head coach. And the only quarterback, to my knowledge, that Shane Steichen had spent any real time around was Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts played 6 years in college. And Jalen Hurts sat the bench at the beginning of his career. And you think it's going to be that way with a 21-year-old who's got 14 starts in the NFL. That's just not how, or in college, that's just not how it's going to work. And it takes me back to where the Titans were 10 years ago. Mike Mularkey and his old pawpaws, they did not get treated fairly. And now that the emotion is out of it and the story is complete and everybody knows what's what, John Robinson, I think, made a terrible mistake when he fired Mike Mularkey. And at the time, they used Terry Robisky as the scapegoat to say, well, he wouldn't fire Robisky, and that's why it didn't work out. And I believe, again, that the New England Patriot way, they wanted it to be the Patriot way, period. They thought it existed the same way I thought it existed. It doesn't. It's the Tom Brady way. But Mike Mularkey and his old coaches, they knew football. They had experience. Mularkey had experience with J.P. Lossman in Buffalo, with Blaine Gabbert in Jacksonville. There probably was a how-to on what not to do as much as the how-to on what to do. And they protected Mariota. When they didn't have a great team around them, they protected him by handing the ball off 30 times a game to DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. And you all hated it. But they were protecting the young quarterback because they knew what they were doing. And Mularkey, this just wasn't his personality. He's never going to get up there in front of the media and say, well, the reason that we're doing this is because the quarterback's really not that good. In fact, they lost a game to the Minnesota Vikings. And Mularkey got up there after the game, his first game of the season. And they lost to the Minnesota Vikings. And they were onside kicking, trying to get the ball back. And Mularkey said, hey, we feel like with number 8, anytime we have a chance to come back and win the game. Because that's how a coach pumps up the young quarterback, while behind the scenes saying, we got to minimize the young quarterback. And I think that experience, again, using the Richardson thing, and we'll see with Brian Callahan, because Brian Callahan, again, maybe Levis was not savable. Maybe he was unsalvageable. But Callahan did not do a good job last year with Will Levis. He didn't do a good job. Again, that's like the whole Joe Burrow thing of, well, he's got the experience with Joe Burrow. Yeah, that was last year. That was last year that we were saying, well, he's going to turn Will Levis into Joe Burrow. So now no. You got to prove to me you got the chops. And I don't think he does. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he does have it, but I'm not sure. And so I think in Indianapolis, you got a play caller who's got his head buried in his play sheet and isn't really paying attention to the real important development aspects of the young quarterback. And I think it's failed both Steichen, and I think he's going to get fired over it. It's failed both Steichen and Richardson. And then on the other hand, we had the Mike Mularkey experience, not a sexy hire, but at the same time, well, I think the guy and his old coaches, I think they kind of knew what they were doing. I think they kind of knew. And they just didn't get enough respect. And that's a problem I have with Brian Callahan is, it's not so much the plays and the scheme and the play calls and everything else, which, again, I still have a little bit of an issue with, but it's the everyday stuff. It's the everyday, hey, we're going to talk to Cam about this. Hey, we're going to talk to Cam about that. Hey, we're going to manage this for Cam. Hey, we're going to manage that for Cam. And sometimes you can hold a guy's hand and he just can't do it. And sometimes, and this is what I believe with Burrow, I believe that this is the way for Burrow and Peyton Manning, which is it didn't matter who was coaching him. Brian Callahan, Zach Taylor, Jim Morris Sr., Tony Dungy, Jared Stillman. It does not matter. Rich Kotite could have coached them, and it wouldn't have mattered. Manning and Burrow would have been great. But that's a really high bar. And again, I mean this with all due respect to Cam. But I don't think Cam is Burrow or Manning. So that coaching thing, I think it's important. And I think Lawrence and Richardson, I think are examples of, hey, you got to help this young fella out. You can't just put him out there and say, all right, Johnny, here you go, and expect results. It's not fair. 615-737-1025. A lot of you want to weigh in on the phone, so that's what we're going to do next. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman & Company on 102.5 and 106 through the game.
these organizations are ultimately, when you want to go, God, Ryan Leaf was a bust. And I'm like, well, sure seems like the San Diego Chargers were. They're the ones that drafted me second overall. What the hell were they thinking? I didn't draft myself. If I could have had to say where I went, I would have went to Pittsburgh. That's an organization where you go to, you're going to have success because they have consistency. They're built to win. They've done it for decades. So, I do put a lot of onus. I think there's probably 8 to 10 programs in the entire NFL that from top to bottom are set to be successful in this league. And that's a hard thing to do with how they've tried to make and legitimize every team in the league. But I really do. I think there's 8 to 10 teams that have longevity for being great programs in this league.
There you go. That was Ryan Leaf. So again, I'm sure people say, "Oh, Ryan Leaf, he sucked." Right. Yes, exactly. Let's go to your phones. 615-737-1025. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter says, Chad Brinker does not have any credibility in my eyes. We have a rookie GM, and that means nothing to me. This organization is trash. I'm not going to knock it. I mean, I do like some of the things Borgonzi's done. I'm not going to drop my pants after day 3 of the draft like a lot of you all did. But at the same time, I do think the lack of experience with Brinker, Borgonzi, Callahan, I do think Denard Wilson, Holtz, it's alarming. And I mean, the lack of experience on the coaching staff. Now, Bones Fossil and Mike McCoy do help in terms of experience on the coaching staff, but I absolutely worry about the experience of the coaching staff. Josh says Richardson would have sucked no matter what. You like to rub it in someone's face when they are wrong, but you can't take it when you are. Just digging for reasons why you're not wrong, though you were. I'll just say this. Again, when it came to drafting Anthony Richardson, I think I was high off the Mahomes improvement and the Allen improvement. How much better they got from where they were drafted. Remember, Josh Allen was the 3rd quarterback in his class, and Mahomes was 2nd behind Mitch Trubisky. And I had Rick Spielman was sitting there saying, like, hey, those guys, when we evaluated them coming out, they had holes in their game. And Andy Reid and Brian Dable deserve the credit for fixing the holes in their game. And this is the case with a lot of coaches, which is you take a guy that throws 100 miles an hour, but he can't throw a strike. And there's a pitching coach out there that says, I can coach him. And so with Richardson, I knew what the Titans had done with McNair in the 90s. I knew what had happened with Mahomes sitting the bench. And I said, I'm going to take a shot on this raw talent that you can't just get anywhere else, but you've got to develop it properly. And when Indy took him, I said it that night. I said the one hope is that they screw him up the way they screwed up Andrew Luck. And guess what? Anthony Richardson got hurt right away. Now, TD texted me and was like, hey, Richardson started 12 games in college. Cam has started something like 55 in college. And that is a difference. Make no mistake about it. What I would say, though, is if you sit Cam on the bench and you let him watch for a little bit, and I'm not saying that he has to sit for the whole year. I wouldn't sit him for the whole year. I told you guys, if I drafted Anthony Richardson, it's right to the podium, and I'm saying Ryan Tannehill is the starting quarterback. I would not have said that the day that they drafted Cam. Now, I would have given everybody the impression that it is possible that Brandon Allen is going to be the starting quarterback of this football team. And there are a lot of you that would not have liked that. But the reason being for me with all these guys is I just believe that if you sit a quarterback, you don't really lose anything other than maybe the game, so on and so forth. But if you play a quarterback before he's ready, you lose a lot. And that's toothpaste I don't think you can put back in the tube. That's where I'm cautious. Again, I do not want to put Cam in a situation to where he is going to look back and he's going to say, oh, man, I wish I had sat the bench because I wasn't ready. I didn't know better. How many times in your life do you look back and say, man, I wish I knew better? There are a lot of things in my life I look back on and I'm like, man, I wish I knew better. And that's the tough part. One texter says, I promise you we Trevor Lawrence Will Levis and we'll do the same to Cam Ward. You know, that's the thing is, again, with these young guys, and I said this to TD when he was on, and I said, you know, I've just decided this fan base, whomever they draft, the Titan fans are going to love it no matter what. Remember Poo-Poo Johnson? When we didn't know who the Titans quarterback was going to be, before everybody had hopped aboard to go get Cam Ward train, when we all thought the quarterbacks in this class stunk, and we thought they were going to trade the pick, and we were talking Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, and I brought up Poo-Poo Johnson. And I said, Poo-Poo Johnson is a random mythological quarterback. But if the Titans signed Poo-Poo Johnson, at least 40 to 50% of you would try to tell me that I'm crazy for not getting behind Poo-Poo Johnson. The people that hated Sam Darnold, if they had gone the Sam Darnold path, they would have been like, I mean, Sam Darnold, when he finally had good coaching, figuring it out. Sam Darnold, instead of it went from, well, Minnesota, he had Justin Jefferson and Kevin O'Connell. It would have been Justin Jefferson and Kevin O'Connell went 7-10 the year before Sam Darnold showed up, and he doubled their win total. But again, that's just based upon the decision the Titans make. Whereas I am very cautious with young quarterbacks because I saw what happened to Vince Young, and I still think Vince Young, I don't think that Jake Locker could have ever been good. Let me just put that out there. I think Jake Locker sucked. I don't think Jake Locker had the right temperament, personality, and I'm sure the coaching didn't help, but I don't think Bill Walsh could have coached up Jake Locker. With Mariota, I think there was something there early on. I'm not sure Mariota had the personality to really grab the bull by the horns, which I think a young quarterback has to do. With Levis, I mean, I hate to say it, like I thought there was a chance Levis could have been good, but at the same time, like Levis had got a lot of problems. Vince Young's the one who I look back on and I'm like, man, what could have been? Vince Young was so good. He was so good in college. He got to the pros. And yes, he wasn't the most accurate passer in the world, but neither was Lamar Jackson. Neither was Cam Newton. And yet, Jeff Fisher, for whatever reason, I feel like he and Vince went sideways. And Floyd Reese wasn't here to see it every day anymore. And Steve Underwood didn't know what he was looking for. And Bud Adams wasn't here. And if they had gotten rid of Jeff Fisher and had gotten a coach in here that had embraced Vince Young, I think there's a chance Vince could have been special. I really think so. Well, Vince didn't work hard and Vince didn't. I mean, Vince must have done something right to be so good at Texas. My guess is Vince felt disrespected by Jeff Fisher and Vince didn't want to work hard for Jeff Fisher, couldn't do it. Could be wrong. But again, I absolutely think the Titans screwed him up. And I think Vince could have been awesome. Because Vince was great when he entered the league. So I am worried about Trevor Lawrencing these quarterbacks. If your team had drafted Lawrence, if your team had drafted Richardson, you would have said, oh, yes, we're going to turn him into a star. And no disrespect, but Trevor Lawrence is further along than Cam Ward was. But I do have a hard time when it comes to the Vince Young thing, man. Like, he could have been. Whew. Ryan in Nashville says, you're completely right, Jared. Cam should sit for a year instead of being thrown to the Wolves. Great example is Caleb Williams last year with the Bears. Look how nervous and unprepared he was. The Titans beat the Bears week 1 if it wasn't for the screw-ups. So I actually think Caleb Williams had an okay rookie year. Now, I don't like Caleb Williams, and I don't know if he's a leader. You know, I just don't know if Caleb Williams takes the game seriously enough to be a star. But Caleb Williams was in a bad spot. And you go look at Caleb's stats. They weren't bad. Now, I didn't watch Caleb on a week-in, week-out basis, and I thought they should have fired the coach before Caleb even got there. But when I think about sitting, I again think about these guys that get out there, and it's the game's too fast. They're not ready. The team in front of them is too bad, and it just beats their confidence in like a pulp. Just like Sam Darnold. You know, I still, you guys know I like Sam Darnold, and I feel justified in my Sam Darnold respect because this time last year when J.J. McCarthy busted his knee, I said, look, I'm all in on Sam. And if he sucks, I'll be the first to put my hand up there. But I think what I've seen out of Sam Darnold, knowing that he's going to play with a good coach and with good receivers, I think he's going to be good. And the guy won 14 games and garnered MVP votes. And the reason I bring that up is I think that one Monday Night Football moment in which NFL Film should have never approved ESPN using that sideline microphone with the I'm seeing ghosts out there. NFL Films has the right to thumbs up, thumbs down any mic'd up content during the game. NFL Film should have thumbs down that one. I think they porked Sam Darnold with that. But Sam Darnold was proof to me that when you take a guy who's not ready and you throw him out there in New York with Adam Gase as the coach with no receivers, he's going to look like a bust. And I hate to say it, but look at your team. It ain't good. Look at your coach. Are you sure he's good? And I have a hard time getting on that side of it to feel, oh, yeah, no, this will be fine. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 through the game.
maybe a little bit of the misnomer with the draft is that these players can come in and all of a sudden become this great professional player before they've really had the training and the development. And it was rare for quite a while for rookie quarterbacks to come in and play. Maybe if you're the first overall pick, but not if you're a second rounder, a third rounder. You had a chance to be groomed. Well, we're not allowing them to do that much anymore. Now we're throwing them out there. Let's see what you can do. And the really challenging thing, if I was a young quarterback in this day and age, to go out there with the pressure of the agents and the families, the schools, the social media, the fans, the coaches, the owner, how do these kids live up to that? I think it's a real challenge for these young quarterbacks. Hopefully they go into a system that can embrace them, that can fit and mold who they are. Hopefully they have coaches around them that can develop them in the best possible way.
There you go. That was Tom Brady. So for everybody out there, Titans Twitter's all mad because I said, are we sure? Like, are we sure that Cam Ward's ready to start right away? And Titans Twitter's all mad. You so stupid, Jared. Again, I want you to think about this. The Titans are terrible. They won 3 games last year. The only meaningful additions they made to their team are Dan Moore Jr., a left tackle who is probably at best an average left tackle, Tyler Lockett, an old pawpaw who's aging at wide receiver. They cut their leading sacker, Harold Landry, from a year ago. Their number 1 corner is facing charges for an alleged shooting. I mean, you think Cam Ward, with 0 NFL experience, is going to be dropped right in with a head coach who is 3-14, with a defensive coordinator who thinks spelling out Titans is going to make a difference one way or another. You think that Cam Ward is so good that you're just going to drop him in there and he's going to be Mahomes? He doesn't have Mahomes coach. He doesn't have Mahomes receivers. He doesn't have Mahomes tight end. He doesn't have any of that. Mahomes sat the bench for a year. I guess Cam's too good. You know, Mahomes, he's not good enough. But Cam, he's good enough. Here's Tom Brady saying, when I was coming up, you didn't play right away. And you guys are like, you guys don't get it. You tell that to Tom Brady then. You apparently know more than Tom Brady, which is so ridiculous. And here's another one that's ridiculous. Texture says, all the guys you're talking about sat behind competent quarterbacks, which the Titans do not have. Brett Favre sat behind the Magic Man, Dan Majkowski. Whoa. He's headed to Canton. What are you talking about? Josh Allen sat for a game behind Nathan Peterman. Whoa. Steve McNair sat behind Chris Chandler. It's fine if Brandon Allen plays quarterback. It's fine. It's just this immediate. You guys want it now. You want now. The infrastructure is not in place for you to be successful right now. So I'm saying, let's be patient and let's not let the toothpaste out of the tube. And you people are like, no, he's Mahomes. We need to win right away. Do you? Do you expect to win right away? One texter says all the quarterbacks you're talking about sat behind good quarterback. Again, Nathan Peterman, Dan Majkowski. Do I think the Titans should have gotten a better quarterback than Brandon Allen? Yeah, I do. I think the Titans should have been in on Daniel Jones. I think the Titans should have been in on one of those guys, even if they were going to draft Cam. Do I want to watch Brandon Allen play quarterback? No. But I know they're not going to win week 1 at Denver anyways. Might as well let Brandon Allen get his teeth kicked in, since it's going to be that way at Denver. One texter said, same thing you said for Darnold could be said for Levis and many more. The only difference are the preconceived notions and personal opinions. So here's, again, how I came to the conclusion that I had with Sam Darnold, which was not the conclusion that I had with Will Levis. I saw Sam Darnold play well in 2022. And everybody just pretends that didn't happen. And I'm like, he was 4-2 as a starter with a higher QBR than Aaron Rodgers. He and DJ Moore almost single-handedly got Carolina back into the playoff race. Like, Sam Darnold was good in 2022. And that was a team that Baker Mayfield, who also is a decent quarterback, that is a team that Baker Mayfield did nothing with. Sam was 4-2. Baker was 1-5. So I felt strongly about what I saw at the end of 2022. Plus, he spent a year with Kyle Shanahan. I think that'd make you better. And so I believe there was something there. But nobody else saw 2022 because nobody else was watching Carolina Panther football. And regardless, I mean, I was right about Darnold. It's funny because, like, this Titans Twitter last week was like, you think Sam Darnold's good? I'm like, dude, Sam Darnold just won 14 games. How many years will it take Cam to win 14 games? Skyler says, sit Cam for at least 2 weeks and agreed about Callahan. He needs to show he can handle with the play calls, tempo, time management, etc. And I'm sick and tired of him having a nervous-ass look on his face all the time on the sidelines. I would sit Cam for the first 2 weeks for sure. Let's let Jared Verse get past us. Let's let the Denver game on the road get past us. And then if you want to put Cam out there and you think he's ready, go ahead and do it. NBA Finals tonight. I'm taking OKC to win the title. That's going to do it for us, Stillman and Company. We are out of here. We'll see you all Monday at 2.